Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome on into the Annie and Elsten show on 97.3 The Fan, San Diego's #1 sports station. I'm Annie Heilbrand. Craig Elsten is out today. He is golfing in a charity golf tournament. He'll be back tomorrow, so we wish him luck on the greens, but I'll be holding it down with Braden Suprenant, who did a terrific job on the pre- and post-game show all weekend and was down at Petco Park, as was I, so we've got a lot to get to in Padres baseball and in the world of sports that happened over the weekend. A lot of fun stories and a lot of big moments, but none as big as the moment that happened yesterday at Petco Park. So we're going to break this down and we're going to start this show off talking about, as the Padres continue 18 games in 18 days, and this is day number 11 for them of this stretch, the veteran and the rookie, Jurickson Profar, Jackson Merrill, a guy who has 10 plus years in the big leagues, is having a career year this year, has learned so much about himself throughout this time, and a guy who is just getting started, just starting what looks to be, if he continues at this pace or anything close to it, an illustrious major league career. They are on different ends of the clubhouse, and yet they are so similar, the two of them. They are both clutch in big moments. They both want to win. They both play with an edge. And most of all, they both hate to lose. Jurickson Profar hates to lose more than he even loves to win. I mean, he loves to win, of course, but he hates losing. Jackson Merrill, same thing. He's been that way all season long. The guy gets pissed off when he loses. They've both been so electric for the Padres this season. They're a huge reason why the Padres are where they are this year. And the bats, listen, let's start. Let's go back to yesterday. The bats were quiet for much of the game. Jose Quintana, once again, doing what he does against these Padres, doing what he did in New York against this lineup, kept the Padres down for 6 1/3 shutout innings. It was sold out at Petco Park. The fans, they were quiet too. Not much to cheer about. The Mets were up 2-0 most of the game. 8th inning, Mason McCoy, great plate appearance by the rookie, draws a 7-pitch walk. Trots over to first. Okay, guy on board. A little bit of a chance for redemption here. Jurickson Profar, to that point, was 1 for 3. Single in the first inning, followed by 2 groundouts. He's up there in the 8th. 6th pitch of the at-bat. Homers on a line drive to right field. Pauses as he starts his home run trot. Looks at the dugout like, hey, let's finish this off. Let's go. New ball game, tie ball game. Motions to all of them, goes around the bases. Petco Park suddenly on its feet. Everybody has woken up. It's hot out there, but they've seen this so many times before, these fans, what a comeback win looks like for the Padres, and that was them just getting started. So that was Profar's 21st home run, a new career high for him, his 5th game-tying home run of the season. That passed who else but Jackson Merrill for 4 on the season. And that's the most on the team to that point, right? But Merrill had a vendetta of his own. He tried to steal in the 7th. He overslid as the potential game-tying run. Like, to that point, you guys were watching, I'm sure, that was the only rally the Padres really had. They got something going there in that inning. Jackson Merrill overslid. He stayed on the bag as long as he could, but then he came off, head down on the ground, his body just on the field, laid out. Lindor celebrating next to him, right? Gets up, face is bright red, runs off the field, comes back on to play center, and he says he flushes it. I flush it. He did the math in his head. He realized if a few guys get on base, he's going to have a chance to go ahead and atone for what happened there. And that was what he did. What has he done so many times in the 9th inning? We've seen it before.
2-0 pitch from Diaz. Jackson swings, hits it in the air, deep to right field. He has done it again. Unbelievable. Jackson Merrill with his 2nd walk-off home run of the year. And the Padres come all the way back and beat the Mets 3-2.
He's as cold as ice.
The man is clutch. He's clutch. His teammates called it in the dugout. Profar said it after the game. Machado said it after the game. That when Arise, really, it was Arise that started it. When Jackson Merrill came up to bat, they were like, here he goes. He's going to do it. We all know he's going to do it. 2 pitches later, he does it. We are looking at a guy who continues to make history. Okay, that was the third pitch of that at-bat that he homered. He walked it off, 19th home run of the season for him. He is tied for the most game-tying or go-ahead home runs in a single season in MLB history with 6. The qualifiers there, 8th inning or later, age 21 or younger. Jackson Merrill is in the company of Hall of Famer Frank Robinson, who had 6 of these such games in 1956. He broke a tie with Hall of Famer Mel Ott, who in 1929 had 5. These are the guys next to him. 2 Hall of Famers. This is what he's doing. That is the rarity of what we're looking at. Jackson Merrill is batting .333 with a 1158 OPS in late and close situations. That OPS is 8th highest in the majors. Do you want to know who was first in the majors in late and close? You want to guess? It is one Jurickson Profar. He leads all of Major League Baseball in late and close situations, a 1457 OPS. For context, in that case, in that scenario, Juan Soto is 4th, Shohei Ohtani is 6th, Jackson Merrill is 8th. Okay, I'm not saying clutch is the only stat needed for a great baseball player. We know it's not. But it certainly helps when a team is in a playoff push, when you know that you're going to have so many close games that you're going to have to get through just to get into the playoffs, much less when you're in the playoffs. To have 2 guys, they're not going to do it every time, but they know they can do it most times. Their teammates know they can do it most times. They just lock in, they focus, they take it to a different level. These are 2 of the lowest paid guys on the roster. We know what Jurickson Profar is making, $1 million with some bonuses. Jackson Merrill coming up, he's just brought up from playing 46 games in AA, part of the farm system for the Padres last year. 2 of the least expensive guys on the roster. Here they are celebrating on the field. I don't know if this has sound, but we're seeing it in the YouTube chat. They're pumping up the fans out there. Jackson Merrill's just going crazy. Gives Mike Shildt. Actually, Mike Shildt really gives. He went to go high five Mike Shildt, and Mike Shildt embraced him, and Jackson Merrill picked him up off the ground. 2 guys who were made for each other, Jackson Merrill and Mike Shildt, because Jackson Merrill gets to play the kind of baseball he likes to play. And Mike Shildt has a guy on his squad that is a gamer, that hates to lose, that plays smart, that understands the situations. Same thing with Jurickson Profar. You talk to Jurickson Profar about Mike Shildt. He loves the guy because he lets him play free. And that is what Jackson Merrill gets to do too. As a rookie, that doesn't always happen. You don't always get that kind of fit with a manager. You usually come up as a rookie, and you've just got to kind of find your place and fit in with the rest of the team, do what you're told. He gets to play like a veteran because he's allowed to play like a veteran, and he has met that moment time and time again. It was a great win for the Padres. They both are big guys in the clubhouse. Like I said, they're on opposite sides of the clubhouse. Jurickson Profar brings in his experience and what he's done and the struggles that he's had in Major League Baseball. But he looks over there at the rookie who absolutely cannot imagine anything else except being on a winning playoff team. He doesn't know anything else except being on a winning playoff-bound team. That is what he brings to the table. And they both kind of meet in the middle there. But they're both great clubhouse guys. You know, you see what Jurickson Profar has done for this team all year, the way he plays, the intensity with which he plays. Jackson Merrill talks about energy all the time. You know, he talked yesterday about energy again, how energy is so contagious in that dugout, and they only want to bring good energy. Jackson Merrill is all about energy. Just bring the good vibes, no slamming of your bats, no slamming of your helmets, no going crazy in the dugout when something doesn't go your way. You just bring the good vibes, they'll pick each other up, and they'll take care of the rest. Credit to Hoeing, to Estrada, Adams, Scott, Suarez. That bullpen kept that game in reach, let the offense come back. We saw Mike Shildt manage this one aggressively. He can't do that every night, but he certainly did that yesterday. He pulled Martin Perez with the bases loaded in the 4th inning. The Mets were up by 1, went to the big guns in the bullpen. Hoeing got Francisco Lindor in that 4th inning, left the bases loaded. Hoeing has inherited 14 runners this year. He's only allowed 1 of them to score. So we're going to continue to get into that story and everything that the Padres did this weekend as we go through this show. But It was a pretty dynamite moment. Braden was there, saw the whole thing. Like I said, did the pre and post game show. And it was one of those where you're looking at it and you're going, okay, do the Padres just kind of not have it in them in this game? You know, they don't always win on Sundays. Sundays haven't been their best day for whatever reason. The Mets were doing pretty well this whole series. And you kind of felt like, okay, are the Mets going to sneak one out here? But as soon as you saw Suarez come in for that ninth inning tie ball game, you knew, right? You knew if this offense gets a chance to come to the plate, which they will, you were looking at a potential for another walk-off. And they've done it so many times this year. So just a great way for them to continue as they head into a long week. St. Louis Cardinals, Tampa Bay Rays, going to be nice and toasty there in Missouri. They've got a 4-game set that they're going to there. We're going to talk all about that with Derek Gould, who has covered the Cardinals for decades for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. He's going to join us at 10:35. He covered all of Mike Schultz's tenure as well, so he's got a lot of insight there, does a terrific job for them. Brayden and I are going to get into the weekend that was in the 11 a.m. hour. Going to get into the sports fix, going to cover a little bit of college football, some NFL, all the sports news that happened around San Diego and the big stories around that happened nationally too over the weekend. So we've got a lot to get to as we take you through until 2 p.m. Gwynn and Chris follow this show, plus I think Matt Scraby on for the Padres pregame show, followed by some Padres baseball again in St. Louis tonight at 4:45. So an early game today. Stick with us. Brayden and I will come back in the next segment and talk a little bit about his experience this weekend at Petco Park, and we'll set up the rest of the show. Keep it right here, 97.3 The Fan. This hour on 97.3 The Fan is brought to you by Express Employment Professionals. If your supply chain demands a flexible workforce, hire with Express Employment Professionals. With contract and full-time workers from Express Employment, you get the staff you need and manage contingent labor costs. Learn more at expresspros.com. That's expresspros.com. Welcome on in to the Annie and Elsten Show. I'm Annie Heilbrand. Craig Elsten out at a charity golf tournament today, so we wish the winds to ever be at his... Is it back, do you think, Braden? Do we wish the winds to be at his back?
Hit him straight.
Okay, hit him straight, Craig.
That's it.
That's
hit him
right.
Straight.
Welcome on in. Braden Surprenant with me today, which is great. Braden, you were down at Petco Park all weekend, did a terrific job on the pre- and post-game shows. How was that for you? How was it? You spent all weekend down there.
It was fun. It was a good time. I mean, I'm exhausted on top of the week I had last week, and then Friday night obviously was a long night for myself, and then Friday morning we had film, and then got back home. It was like, noon, and had to crank out my pregame show notes and then head down to the ballpark and, do everything that Sam usually does behind the scenes, setting up things. There's
a lot to do.
It's a lot of moving parts to the pre and post. So, it was fun. Saturday wasn't as fun, obviously, with the result, but it was one of those games. And then Sunday was a blast. I mean, I don't know. I just had this feeling that they were going to pull it off. And I was funny. One of my friends that was in the press box, I told him, I was like, well, this job gets a little bit more difficult if the Padres win, and especially if they're losing going into the ninth inning, because I have to be in two places at one time. Right. But I went over to set up for the postgame show in the loft. And so I'm setting up my stuff, and I have to do it discreetly and hide it underneath the tables and all that other fun stuff to make sure.
Because you're just out there in the fans, like anybody can just touch anything.
Right. There is an elite security guard over there now, which is cool. So I kind of gave him the head nod, like, hey, like just
keep an eye on this.
No funny business over here. And as I'm like walking out of the loft, the ballpark erupts, and it's Jerickson Profar's 2-run homer to tie it. And I'm like, all right, well, now I really got to get to the press box and make sure all my ducks are in a row to go down to the field, because if the Padres win, we get an interview on the Padres radio network. And you have to text the PR staff, and I was like, well, Profar walk-off winner, right?
Seems like the good choice.
And then Padres couldn't get the extra win or extra run in the 8th inning. Suarez comes in. I go down to the field. I thought Jake had a really long, good at-bat against Edwin Diaz.
I'm glad you brought that up. He did.
He saw a lot of pitches, and I'm standing there right, and Jackson's getting dialed in on the on-deck circle, just getting as many pitches as he could possibly see to a guy that he's never faced before. I mean, Edwin Diaz said that in his post-game yesterday. We played it on the post-game show. I don't know if we still have it. I don't think we do.
If you find it, let's hear it. Yeah.
But Edwin Diaz basically said, and I'll get to that in a second. But I'm looking down. I'm trying to get all my recordings ready to go on my phone. Crack of the bat. Stadium erupts. Look up. I'm like, well, that's a no-doubter. And then it's just the rush, the rush sprint onto the field. I got to fill the I filmed that. Video that we played earlier. That was kind of my point of view. Really cool to watch him get animated, and and I asked him. I was like, I usually don't like asking like how you feel. I mean, obviously he feels great. He hit a home run, but I did have to ask in terms of comparisons. He's had so many of these already in his rookie year. It's like, how does this one stack up? Because they needed that game. That was a much a much needed game for the Padres before this next stretch, and trying to keep pace. Diamondbacks already won. The Dodgers had a lead, and that was a huge game that could really, I think, propel a team. But it was a fun weekend, had by all. I met a lot of great people at the ballpark. Met some people on Friday night. That was cool. That were listeners of the show. Shout out to our guy Gary on the sideline, the official. He was cool. He came up to me before the game. And like 3 kids on my team were like, what is that about? What do you mean show? And I'm like, oh.
They have no idea what you do.
My kids have no idea what I do.
Not
some
your
of
real
them,
kids. They're
not
like
my
your kids.
the kids that I coach, and there's like 80 of them. I was like, they were like, what is he talking about? Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about my other job.
There's like 3 or 4
My
kids on the team that
livelihood.
know. Yeah, exactly. But most of them don't. So,
They're like, what's the radio? What's a radio? Is it a podcast, coach? Is it a podcast?
well, the ones that do know what I do, they just assume this is a podcast. They go, how's the podcast all the time? But no, fun time this weekend. I didn't get wore down as much as I thought I would. I paced myself. I hydrated. I ate. Tonight, I'll have men's soccer. We got the city championship tonight, Annie.
Nice.
USD and San Diego State over at Torero Stadium.
Oh, that'll be fun.
So,
Are you calling that?
yes.
Nice.
I'll be
Okay.
tonight, and then after tonight, I'll have a nice little break.
That'll be
for
great.
A while,
You
which
know,
is great.
there is a lot that goes into. I watch Sammy do it as well, and you guys have to do a lot when you're down there, and then you have to make the sprint from the field up to the Western Metal Supply Building. But it sure is fun when you're down there on the field and you get to see the celebration from like you're the same eye level as the players are seeing it. And you feel just the energy happening in that moment, and everyone just rightfully so freaking out, which is so fun. And I'm glad you brought up that Cronenworth at bat, because he did do a good job in his plate appearance before Jackson Merrill went to the plate. And I know that they had a little chat afterwards. Both of them said it was just a normal, hey, this is what I saw, just kind of giving him a little bit of his insight. But neither one of them made too much of that chat, but it still goes to show what the Padres have done all year long, which is communicate with each other. They communicate between plate appearances, between innings, whenever they're seeing something from a pitcher or whatever they're just have something to pass on. They do a lot of that, and that seems to help them this year. But got to be fun to be down there, Braden, and just kind of get the feel of it for sure.
I've been fortunate enough to, and all the times I've filled in on the pre and post, which is I've done for the last 5 or 6 years now. I have gotten to do 2. I've actually gotten to do pre and post on 3 pretty insane games. The one that I immediately thought of yesterday after feeling the energy on the field was another Sunday that I did. And you might have done sidelines that day, was when Hunter Renfroe hit the walk-off grand slam against the Dodgers, against Kenley Jansen. That was another fun one where I got to interview Hunter Hunter Renfroe after TV did. At the ballpark, where you felt the energy. I got to talk to Franmil Reyes after you did when he was singing to the crowd, so that was fun. Another fun day doing pre and post, and then yesterday was obviously great. And I mentioned on the post-game show too, you don't really understand or feel the energy of that ballpark as close to the players do until you're on the field during a moment like that. And I mentioned, as crazy as it might feel in the ballpark for all of you fans, like throughout the game, multiply that by at least 5, and that's what the players are feeling. It is different on the field than it is just in the stands, and the fans have done such a great job for the last 5 years of just making that place such a fun ballpark to be at, and they feed off that energy, and it's a different level down there on the field that you don't really get to experience unless you walk onto the field. So great job by the fans. And, the opposing teams, they always talk about how it feels like a playoff atmosphere, and they're not just doing that to blow smoke. I mean, there's no incentive for the Mets to talk about how great the Padres fans are, and they said it in their postgame yesterday.
Absolutely agree. And it was packed there yesterday, right? I mean, like, you felt the crowd just kind of waiting for something, right? Like waiting for the moment. It was hot out there, but they were sticking with it. I think it was still pretty packed there when that 8th and 9th inning came, and not like a lot of fans left.
Yeah, there's, I think there were some parts of the ballpark that looked like that just because it was in the sun.
Yeah, sure.
But I think they found shade in other parts of the ballpark because it was definitely still extremely loud. Edwin, I didn't find the Edwin Diaz thing, but Edwin Diaz, after the game, they asked him about what it was, what happened on the at-bat, but then also what it's like, how do you attack a guy like Jackson Merrill? And Edwin Diaz was, he was like, this is the first time I've ever faced Jackson Merrill. And he said, so I started out with the fastball to see if he could catch up to that. And he must have got a piece of it. I don't remember. This is kind of a blur. But then he goes on to say, so after I test him with the fastball, I tried to go slider away to see if he would chase on the setup pitch, and I left it over the heart of the plate.
Yep.
Then he hit over the fence.
Went slider middle instead.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So, because I was sitting there, I think it was the Marlins game where the Padres came back, and Jackson hit that bomb against the Marlins in Miami. Yeah. And I brought this up that Monday show after. I said, why do teams continually try to throw fastballs by Merrill after they've watched so many times that this guy can hit a fastball, and it's until like a pitcher actually sees this guy, they go like, well, he can't hit my fastball. Right. And so they try it, and then it's like, oh, no, I guess he could hit that. And then you get a mistake pitch. And the thing that's great about Jackson, we talk about how great he does at hitting fastballs. For a rookie, he is really impressive at hitting a mistake because there's a lot of veterans that still can't always hit mistakes. I mean, hitting mistakes is what separates you from being a good baseball player to a great baseball player. And he's tagged mistakes throughout his entire rookie season.
He has. He's got a good eye for it. He doesn't get too big. I know that that's kind of a cliche thing in baseball, but he really doesn't. I mean, as a rookie, you tend to have the propensity to press a little bit, to want to be the hero, but he doesn't get too big because he's really never felt like a rookie. I mean, he's felt like he should be part of the team since the second he got to the Padres. Done a good job of playing the rookie part and still accepting like the rookie, go get the coffee, go, listen, keep quiet, listen, and which he's doing. He wants to learn, of course, but he also feels like I'm here to help these guys. I'm here to help my teammates win. And when you look at the pitchers that Merrill has had his big moments against, the tying or go-ahead homers in the ninth inning or later, Mason Miller, Blake Trinan, David Bednar, George Soriano, Edwin Diaz. I mean, those are some of the best closers, setup guys, relievers that are in the game that he's been able to get to.
Yeah, that was I saw Cassavell put that out yesterday. That was the first one that I saw, and I mentioned the postgame show. I mean, I had to repeat it 3 times because it was so bizarre. 14. First of all, he's been at the dish 14 times with the Padres tied or trailing by a run in the ninth inning, and in those 14 plate appearances, he's hitting .583, which is crazy in itself. But then he's also got a walk and 5 home runs. And those 5 home runs, as mentioned by Annie, were against Mason Miller, Blake Trinan, David Bednar, George Soriano, and Edwin Diaz. Those are not guys that are fed to the Wolves' bullpen arms that are eating innings. Those are some of the top relievers in baseball. I think it's worth repeating because it's crazy what he has been able to accomplish, and he's been a big reason why this team has been successful, as Annie mentioned in our open today to start the show.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So we're going to get into more of the weekend that was at Petco Park. We'll do that in the 11 a.m. hour. Talk a little bit about Yu Darvish coming back, sitting up there in his Ben and Woods t-shirt and the presser that he held. Fernando Tatis Jr. I mean, Friday was a huge day. I was down there Friday, and that was a big newsy Petco Parky, Padres-y kind of day that they were then able to go out there.
Padres-y. Joe Musgrove.
Joe Musgrove type of day. Luis Arraez, home run. So there was a lot to get to in that game as well. Saturday, a little bit of a weird one, so we'll touch on that. But next, in our next segment, we're going to be joined by Derek Gould, who, like I said earlier, covered the Cardinals for decades for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. He's their main beat writer, and he's done a terrific job. Covered Mike Schilt throughout his tenure with the Cardinals, so we'll get into all that. Keep it right here, 97.3 The Fan. Welcome back on in to the Annie and Elsten show here on 97.3 The Fan, San Diego's #1 sports station. So happy to have all of you with us today on this Monday, starting off another big week for the Padres as they continue this stretch of 18 games in 18 days. They hopped on a plane after the walk-off yesterday, flew to Missouri, where they will take on the Cardinals for a 4-game set starting today. And someone who has covered the Cardinals for decades, done a terrific job covering them for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Their lead beat writer, Derek Gould, is joining us, and so happy to have you. Thanks, Derek. Thanks, Derek, so much for jumping on with us today.
You bet. Happy to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Love it. Well, we're so happy to talk to you. Like I said, you have done a terrific job covering the Cardinals, knowing them inside and out. And let's just kind of start with an overview, Derek, if we can. I mean, it seems like it's been an up and down season for the Cardinals. They just took the series from the Twins, sitting at 500 as of today, 65-65. How would you describe the state of the season? What has it been defined by for you?
Oh, it's been a lack of offense that has put a real strain on the pitching staff. And the pitching staff that was kind of rebuilt and retooled and kind of given an infusion of innings to give it some stability has definitely done that, but it hasn't had the offense that then takes flight to make them anything more than a 500 team. They've needed an elite bullpen to even pull this off, and they got it, but they haven't been able to contend for the division title. The Brewers have really pulled away from that, and they are struggling to get any traction until recently in the playoff race because the offense hasn't been there. I mean, like if their season, if they don't turn it around in their season creators, it all will be traced back to Cincinnati, where they go into a ballpark that isn't exactly the biggest ballpark in baseball. It's a very cozy place, that Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. And the Cardinals managed one run against a team that is beneath them in the standings. They had a chance to really kind of like, all right, got to take advantage, find traction, get themselves positioned. And instead they just completely slipped. And they've been trying to regain since. So it has been a season lacking in offense, and as a result, it has been a season lacking in their expectations. And now it's a season running out of time, and it's a season at risk of being something historic for a historic franchise that doesn't want this history, which is back-to-back losing seasons for the first time since the 50s.
Yeah, a franchise that is not used to that. Exactly. We're always used to seeing the Cardinals making that push for the postseason and being in the postseason. And, you talk about the offense, you've got guys like Mason Wynn, right, who I think, as I understand, has been really good for you guys, but for the Cardinals. But Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, not really having the season that they're used to, right?
Oh, not at all. Yeah, no, they've Paul Goldschmidt has really struggled. His baseball card is unfamiliar for this year, and he's talked a lot about that. And he's volunteered. He's like, you can look at specific games this year where the team has needed me to come through, and the team has lost because he hasn't. He's really struggled. More strikeouts than normal, less power than normal. The Cardinals have among the lowest batting average, lowest slugging percentage against lefties, and with runners in scoring position. And these are two things where he usually is a monster, as you know, out there in the NL West. And he's only a few years removed from National League MVP, which makes it all the more like just confusing how it just doesn't it doesn't really compare to like where his career has been with the Cardinals at all, and that's frustrating for him. That's frustrating for them, but it does explain kind of the core of their offensive struggles.
You made some moves. The Cardinals made some moves at the trade deadline. Outfielder Tommy Pham, starting pitcher Eric Fedde, reliever Sean Armstrong. How have those been working out, and how important were they to acquire?
Well, Fedde was very important. Pham had a really strong start, and they needed both him and his presence, but also kind of the right-handed bat because they were struggling so much against lefties, and they needed that right-handed bat to play outfield. So he was a real kind of like an addition to the depth of the team. But when he started playing so much there early on and was in the lineup a bunch, it really didn't change the nature of the team or the bench, which is what they needed to. That's kind of changed here recently, and they're more like they wanted to be. So he's very, very helpful in that regard. Fetty was just necessary. I mean, they needed some kind of infusion for the rotation, something to just upgrade it. And that wasn't just to replace an injury or absence. That was just to give it some more oomph for this stretch drive. We'll see where they go in the coming week. They got Steven Matz and Lance Lynn on the injured list, and both may be returning. Andre Palante's pitched really well. Back-to-back 7-inning games, pitched really well here in Minnesota. He's been very impressive since returning from the minors, where he went to try to reinvent himself as a starter, and early returns. Well, I mean, he's just been successful doing it. It's very impressive, his turnaround. And what he pulled off. But, is there a place for him when these other guys return? That's the question that will face the Cardinals. It may be decided by injury. It may be decided by performance. But they don't have that decision if they don't add Fetty, and get some depth there. Then they would just be scrambling this whole time for starters, and they would be right back where they spent so much of last year and the year before and the year before.
Joined by Derek Gould, does a terrific job as the lead Cardinals beat writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch here on 97.3 The Fan. And Derek, catcher Wilson Contreras, right, back to the injured list for the second time this season. What kind of loss is that for this team at this point in the season?
Huge. He was their leading guy in OPS and was on his way probably towards the All-Star game when he fractured his forearm earlier this season. A bat just, crashed into his arm and shattered it. And now he's, back on the injured list with a second fracture of this season. He's going for scans today, but there is a possibility, a likelihood that his season is over with a fractured finger. He got hit by a pitch and just was very painful, very swollen for him. He was very frustrated. And it comes at a time when, again, he's leading the team in OPS. That again, like, they don't want him to lead the team in OPS. They would much prefer the guys, other guys be doing that, because then they'd have a more robust offense. But for an offense that has really struggled, he's been the peak. He's been the guy who has been the most consistent, the one who's really hit above league average and really to expectations. And now he's gone. And in his place, there are two rookies. One who has struggled to stop runners from stealing at whim against him, and the other who has a great defensive reputation and has really made strides as an offensive player here recently, probably known himself as an offensive player. So they're going to split up that position, not 50-50, but, split up in some way between two rookies in the heat of a pennant race, which I think is going to be really fascinating to watch, because again, they're craving offense. So do they turn to the catcher with the biggest offensive upside, or do they double down on defense and say, well, if we're not scoring, we better find a way to keep the other team from scoring and win more of these one-run games that they've had so often this season?
It's so interesting because a lot of the similarities go back to the Padres. I mean, they struggled against left-handers to start the season this year, but then have since mostly turned that around. Last year, struggled on offense big time with all their superstars even, and struggled with runners in scoring position. And a lot of credit this year for the Padres being able to get to this point of where they are in the season has gone to manager Mike Shildt. And you covered Mike Shildt for his tenure with the Cardinals. I'm curious, what do you think that this return is like for him? I think this might be his first time coming back to St. Louis.
It is.
Yeah, there you go, since he was let go by the Cardinals in 2021.
Well, it'll be I guess I should say that it's his first time coming as manager to St. Louis. He has come to St. Louis and done events. There even was a gathering of current and former Cardinal managers at a charity event this past winter, which was interesting, because you had all the managers who replaced each other were all there, in addition to the Hall of Fame
How
managers.
was that?
I mean, they're all cordial, which is interesting. I don't know if they had a seat reserved for the front office at that point in time, but they all, they posed for a photo and they all got along. And it was a charity that all meant something to them. So they brought like a personal reason to be there, and it was good. But this will be so Shildt has come back to St. Louis. Since his firing, but not with a team ahead of the Cardinals in the standings.
Right.
Not as a manager who is in the conversation for the National League Manager of the Year. Not at a time when the Cardinals are clinging desperately to being a 500 team, and really out of the playoff race, and definitely not with a team that could then be the one that puts them out of the playoff race. I mean, a 4-game series here. Oof, the Padres bring to St. Louis a show of force, and the Cardinals conversation could change radically in 4 days, right? So, all of those aspects are all new. It's going to be emotional. He's talked, I'm sure he's talked with you. He's talked with other reporters. He's talked a lot of folks about how emotional that was. He was, I spent a lot of time talking to him through the years, going back to shortly after the Cardinals hired him. I got to know him. He was hired as a scout, then worked his way up as a coach. He was always very helpful for me and gave me a great window into what it meant to not overlap with some of the Cardinals' great coaches, but still from yesteryear. I'm talking about the lineage of Branch Rickey to George Kissel to Dave Ricketts, that group that set in motion the Cardinal way, or the Cardinals College of Coaches, if you want to dig into Sports Illustrated's archives and read those stories. But a guy who hadn't been with them directly, but was very much devoted to upholding those standards. So much so that he once told me that he would begin every day with the same question that George Kissel would often ask of people, and it's, are you an organizational man? And to him, to Schilt, what he told me that meant was, is everything you're going to do today about your career, or is it about the Cardinals franchise? What are you going to do today that makes the organization better? Or is what you're going to do today about making your career better? And he felt like it was very important to be an organizational man, to be a keeper of that flame. And that's what those words meant to him. And he took them really seriously. And then all of a sudden found himself without that organization, which was very emotional for him. But he returns to St. Louis probably better for having left. Certainly has benefited from being with another organization, seeing outside the Cardinals bubble. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of emotions for him, but probably he's stronger for it. And I would imagine that the standing can help him in that way.
Absolutely. And that was great insight, Derek. I really appreciate that. As this fan base, as this media group, that everyone continues to get to know Mike Schilt. I mean, I remember reading from you talking about the ball talk meetings he would have in St. Louis, right? And he brought that also into the Padres clubhouse. They do it at the beginning of every homestand, or I'm sorry, every series. I'm just curious. I know we only have a few minutes left here, and I so appreciate your time. Just what was he like? He is someone here who has had the players' backs relentlessly, just always having the players' backs, very, very positive, almost to the point of he can't even see almost, or he chooses not to. He tends to put the players in favorable positions where they are either having teachable moments or moments to succeed, right? That's kind of how he looks at it. Just what are your takeaways from his tenure as a manager, and maybe what he might change or learn as he goes along the way here with the Padres?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, he's going to be a champion for the players, especially publicly. Privately, he's being a little bit more critical, a little bit more direct. His patience for a lack of fundamental play only goes so far. You may not see that publicly, but certainly the players know that, right? If they're making some baseball mistakes or kind of things that they work on in spring training, or that they discuss as essential edges that they cannot give, he'll bring that up to them. But publicly, he'll champion them. Like you said, he'll call them learning moments, right? But he probably expects a graduate level of response. Not as maybe not as permissible as any teacher would be, right?
Yes.
So when he says a learning moment, I think he means learn it now moment.
Or else.
But I think he definitely. I think it's one of the things that is an element of this that kind of gets lost in the Schilt Cardinals era is you had the ball talk, which was early on and really formative for the team and gave them a bond, and really also like he and Marmol and the coaching staff at that time in 2018 really doubled down on like fundamentals and defense. And this is the team we're going to be, and we're going to get back to it. And then they had great results, and he was able to explain it, and he was able to talk about it, and he invited baseball conversation, and not just in the clubhouse, but also with the media, very much like Tony La Russa in that regard. I'm going to tell you about my lineup decisions. I'm eager to tell you about my pitching decisions. Sometimes they don't work out, but I'm happy to explain my thought process. And then the pandemic hit, and everything went on Zoom. And now it was just it's a different exchange on Zoom than it is in person. It always will be. It's less conversational and more transactional. And that came to define a whole season for him, really more than a full season for him. And I'm not sure, like, his eagerness, and you brought up ball talk, which is a great example. Ball talk on Zoom, not the same thing. And now he's got a chance to have that ball talk again, and that in-person connection, so that it's not just him on a TV screen offering the support and saying this is a teachable moment, but it's an in-person stuff that he can do and make that connection in person and make that conversation in person and have that ball talk, with the player, or even explain it to the media in person. And that's a real strength of his that wasn't possible there toward the end with the Cardinals.
Such great insight. Really, really appreciate it, Derek. Thank you so much for joining us, and good luck. As it sounds like it's super muggy there, but I think you're probably used to that in St. Louis. So the Southern California contingent will have to get used to that this week, it sounds like.
Isn't everything super muggy compared to where you are?
Yes. Yes. We're very spoiled. We get our feathers ruffled if it gets like a 79 or 81, right? So we're pretty spoiled
Sounds
over
delightful.
here. Right, exactly. Come out here anytime. We always love seeing you in the press box. Always great. Derek, thanks so much for joining us. Lead Cardinals beat writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Derek. All right, great stuff there from Derek Gould. He does a tremendous job, like I said, covering the Cardinals, and was part of seeing Mike Shildt get that opportunity in St. Louis to manage after he had been in the minor leagues managing for so long, right? Gets the opportunity, has these 3 out of 4 postseason runs, institutes this ball talk, which I can talk more about on the other side, but it's essentially every beginning of every series, the guys sit around, the hitters, and they want more organic conversations. When it started in St. Louis, they described it almost like group therapy, where you can kind of call out people, you can kind of talk more about what you're seeing, and you kind of say stuff that maybe, people might get a little bit offended to, but it's all in this teachable moment. And you have to understand too, at that time, and especially with veterans on the team, people roll their eyes at that. Like, players roll their eyes at that. They don't want another meeting. They don't want to kind of have to talk about some of this stuff. But it made a huge difference for the Cardinals at that time to sit around and get used to doing that, get used to having these conversations. And when you see Mike Shildt now with the Padres, they still do that. And again, you got to have the players to buy into that. But also, they talk. That's part of the communication they do in the dugout. Part of the communication that they do in between plate appearances when they're up there at the plate. So it's all big based on communication. I thought that was really interesting from him. Not necessarily willing to give us so much on the why he makes changes and the decisions behind what he does these days, but still instituting all the communication, which has been huge for these players. All right, on the other side, we're going to talk more about the Padres weekend that was here on 97.3 The Fan. 11 a.m. on a Monday. Annie and Elsten show. Annie Heilbron here. Craig Elsten golfing in a charity golf tournament. He'll be back tomorrow. Joined by Braden Soprano. We are holding down the fort as the Padres are in St. Louis getting ready for the first game of a 4-game set against the St. Louis Cardinals. And we're going to get into the deep dive hour here. The Padres Deep Dive Hour is brought to you by Frozen Ropes Baseball and Softball Training Facilities. Now introducing the Freezy Batting Cage membership for only $79 a month. For more information, visit SanDiegoFrozenRopes.com. So Braden was down at the ballpark yesterday in the morning when Yu Darvish was throwing a sim game, essentially. But let me get into a little bit of what happened over the weekend with Yu Darvish and Fernando Tatis Jr. as we kind of take a look at these two guys who are on their way, right? Like, they are on their way back. Yesterday after the game, Manny Machado was talking to reporters and said, well, we expect to get, or we think we're getting Fernando Tatis Jr. back in a few weeks. That's going to be big. Yu Darvish back in a few weeks. That's going to be big. We don't exactly know the timeline here because they're being a little bit intentionally vague with it, as they like to be over there with the Padres, and that's fine. I think worried about what could be possible setbacks for these guys. They don't want to get too ahead of themselves. And by the way, when we were in the clubhouse on Friday, before Yu Darvish talked and before Fernando Tatis Jr. talked and went out to hit, Jurickson Profar made this motion with his hands where he was like, settle down, settle down, because everybody was visibly kind of amped up about the return of these two players potentially. And he was like, we got to go win a game. Okay, the Mets have owned us. The Mets have owned us, and they were coming off of that Thursday loss to the Mets. So continuation of that series in New York, right? And we got to go win a game. We got to go win tonight. And yeah, it's great that they might be coming back, or they are coming back, or they're going to be back in a few weeks. But we got to all take a beat. And so then they went out there and they handled business on that Saturday night or Friday night, which we'll get to. But before I ask you about it, just a quick look at what happened with Yu Darvish on Friday. He talked to the media. Well, first of all, when we got out there on the field and clubhouse was going, he was in full uniform, hugging players, gave a big hug to Jurickson Profar. That's on my Twitter if you want to see it. He ran out there. Two of them have been friends since the Rangers days. Hugged Martin Perez, who he hadn't seen since Perez joined the team. Those two go way back from the Rangers days. Went out to the field while everybody else was in clubhouse, started doing his warm-ups, his long toss, then went out to the bullpen and then came and talked to reporters. And we were told before he even sat down, hey, he's not going to discuss anything about the personal situation, not going to go into anything what happened with his family. So that was understood from the get-go. Nobody asked about that. Everyone respected that, which was the right thing to do. But got into a little bit of how he was a little nervous. Darvish said, look, I watched every single game. I watched every game the Padres played while I was gone. And they were doing so well, he joked, I wasn't even sure if I should come back. He was laughing about that, but he talked about how he was a little nervous walking into the clubhouse after being gone that long and what his teammates might think. They had just found out a few days before, the night before, that he was coming back. And a few days before that, he had just texted AJ Preller and said, I think I'm ready to come back. I think I can do this. Let's get this going, whatever that conversation was between them. So this happened really quickly. This wasn't something that was set up weeks in advance. This wasn't something that was, working toward and everybody knew the timeline. This was sort of a little bit out of the blue. He was ready to come back. Players found out about it the night before. It was a rumor that was kind of circulating, and then they were all able to join in on the reunion on Friday. He talked about, he did pitch Braden at, was it Westview? Is that what I want to say? Westview?
Yeah, that's usually where he goes.
Okay, yeah, it was Westview High School. So he threw a 27-pitch bullpen on Friday with the Padres, right? He threw twice over an approximate 10-day span to college hitters at Westview High. Remember how we weren't sure, like, who's he throwing to? Who's he pitching to?
Bunch of high school kids.
A bunch of high school kids. It was actually college kids that the manager or the head coach, I guess, at Westview helped set up for them. Helped set up this whole thing where he could come out there and pitch. So he threw those. Okay, so imagine being those college guys. I don't even know if they told him. They're just probably like, hey, we need you to come out to Westview and take some BP with a Padres hitter. Padres pitcher. They probably put it together and figured this could be Yu Darvish. And all right, let's go out there and see what it's like. Bet you Darvish bought them some food or did something cool for them. But anyways, I digress. But he talked about how he was past his injury, so his injury wasn't bothering him anymore. He said it was just a matter of ramping up, getting the right ramp up. So that's good news right there, because we weren't sure really where he was sitting with his injury. But then yesterday morning, the teammates, they're crowded around the turtle shell. He faces live hitters from Lake Elsinore Storm, who were driven down from the Lake Elsinore Storm. They had a game last night that they went to. I forget where it was, but they had a game that they went to. So they were driven down in the morning to face Darvish. What'd you see there, Braden? How did it go?
It went pretty well, I would say. I mean, there was no defense out there, so you were kind of guessing whether or not any of the at bats would be hits.
So no one got any hits.
Nobody got any hits. There was probably AJ Cassavell reported that he didn't see any hits. There might have been maybe one ball that leaked through an infield. You never know. Based on some alignment stuff. Jack Costello hit one ball to the track to right center field.
USD,
but
USD?
that was definitely going to get run down in the outfield. But he looked pretty good. It was, he ended up going 3 innings. I think he faced did he go 3? No, I think he ended up
3 up and downs.
I think that's I think it's what he did. I think he faced like 9 to 15 batters, because I think they had a couple of guys bat more. Just to give him some looks.
Yes, yeah. Through 54 pitches, yeah.
Yeah, and the up and downs. I mean, he definitely had enough breaks in between to kind of simulate an offense, but he looked good. It was in full uniform in Darvish fashion. The guy's never not in full uniform when he's doing any type of simulation. So he looked like he was dialed in and ready to go, and I'm sure that they have a couple more things that they want him to address before they start throwing him out into some games, or whether or not they want to do a rehab assignment or not. But it was good to see Darvish back out there and throwing. It didn't look like he was laboring at all, and it looked like he felt pretty good. It looked like he felt good. So, and it was cool. It was cool for me to see Jack Costello out there. I would look down for the press box, and I'm like, who are these guys? These Storm guys. I'm like, wait a minute. I know that guy.
That's USD.
Yeah,
that guy. I called his games.
That guy was just facing some hitters from Santa Barbara a couple months ago, and now he's facing Darvish at Petco Park to help him out.
That is really cool. That is really cool, right? The Santa Barbara stadium with no bathrooms. Was that the right one?
Yes.
Okay.
With no bathrooms.
That's all I really remember from that story. But
they should never host a regional ever again.
Yes. No, really cool. And I'm sure the night before they got a text from their manager or whatever, like, hey, we're going to drive you guys down, get you some breakfast, go face Darvish. And then they had a game in Rancho Cucamonga at 5 p.m. yesterday. So, and I saw, like you said, simulated base runners, worked on some pickoff plays. He said afterward, Darvish said he felt he threw pretty well. Maybe the last hitter, it was a walk, but other than that, no walks. He said the first 2 innings, his body felt a little stiff, but he also thought that was maybe because it was early in the morning, not usually when he would normally pitch, right? But then he was able to do some twists and felt good mechanically. He looked sharp. I thought, I saw a little bit of video from it. All signs were positive. He looked like he had good command, looked sharp. Again, you're seeing AAA hitters, single A hitters from Lake Elsinore, but at the same time, good to see him in that setting. And then the next thing for him is going to be to stretch his workload from 4 to 5 innings, although not really sure if that's going to be in a setting like what happened yesterday, where they just have this live simulated thing, or an actual minor league rehab assignment. He did travel with the team to St. Louis. So
that's promising.
Yeah, that is promising. And I think that, they'll talk to him. They'll have that conversation. Do you want to go for a rehab assignment? Do you think you can kind of gear up more if we create these simulation games? But I wouldn't be surprised, Braden, if he goes for just maybe a few days rehab assignment. But I don't know. Maybe he doesn't need it.
Yeah, I don't know. He was doing that before, obviously, and then he got it shut down, and for his own reasons, and then we'll see where he's at. I mean, if he feels comfortable, you got to let the vet know or tell you what's going on with his body, because he's going to know himself better than anybody else. But he looked good. All signs look good, and it's good to have him potentially coming back. So that's one familiar friend, one friend coming back potentially for the Padres.
And I want to point out, Darvish was asked about whether it was his decision to go on the restricted list or what that was about. And also a story in The Athletic from Dennis Lynn about a conversation with Darvish's agent, that they've never really seen anything like this happen before, where AJ Preller was going to leave Yu Darvish on the injured list. Let him get paid. Let him just be part of the injured list and continue to get the money that he had in his contract. And then it was Yu Darvish who said, I don't want to do that. I want to do what I think is the right thing here, which is save the Padres some money. I'm not going to be invested at all during this time the way that I know I want to be. So he made the decision, Darvish did, to go on the restricted list. But the two of them, Darvish spoke about how Preller treated him more like a friend than anything during this time, and kind of grew their relationship a little bit closer with the fact that he supported him during this time. It was really just Preller and Yu Darvish talking during those weeks that he was out. They would connect like once a week. So thought that was a really cool note and something that should be mentioned. But then you have the guy walk out on the field as if Yu Darvish wasn't enough, right? You get the guy walk out on the field with his cut tank top that he wears, you guys know, with his shirt sleeves cut out and everything, his hair pulled back in a ponytail, and he warms up with the team, Fernando Tatis Jr., and then takes some swings outside of that turtle shell, gets in and takes live BP. A significant step for Fernando Tatis Jr. He hasn't faced, like Yu Darvish did, he hasn't faced like a live pitching scenario. That'll probably be the next thing for him, and he's in Arizona, so maybe they'll set that up for him there where he's facing more of a live pitching situation. But he took BP like all the other guys in the Padres take BP, and he was sending some missiles. I mean, he was sending some missiles outside the ballpark to the warning track, hitting the ball hard. He looked good. He felt good. Talked afterwards about how, there's no timeline that he's going to adhere to yet. They're still seeing how it goes. They've got it, but he still hadn't done defensive work. So that was next on the list for him. And I don't know if he might have done a little bit of that over the weekend. But as of Friday, still hadn't done a lot of defense work, right? But all the hitting felt good about. Everything else, running, sprinting, felt good about. I asked him if he was feeling any pain. He said not as of yet. So that's a good thing for him. They have to monitor this injury. You can't see this tear in his leg every 5 seconds. You can't wake up every morning and go, hey, is this stress fracture or is this stress reaction where we want it to be or not? You're going to have to go a little bit with how he feels, how he recovers. And to this point, at least by Friday, he said he wasn't feeling any pain. So that's a good sign for him because it's probably going to be a matter of pain management as he goes forward. How much can he tolerate? Eventually, the pain will probably creep a little bit back in. But so he's going to work on some stuff on defense, get his hitting back on track. But Braden, really a good sign for him to be out there, and you start dreaming about what this lineup could look like, right?
Yeah, you start looking at potential playoff rosters and lineups and rotations at the end of September and most of October. And as great as the Padres have been playing right now, that gets a lot better with some of these guys coming back. I mean, if you look at the current 26-man roster, and the Padres did make a roster move today in which Randy Vasquez is added to the roster. Lake Bacher getting set back down.
Poor Lake Bacher, man.
One and done.
Didn't get to make his debut. Didn't get to pitch at all. Right. Just called up for some bullpen relief. But anyways, continue.
That's exactly what happened to Daniel Camarena in his Yankees debut. Got pulled up, didn't play, got sent down immediately, and then didn't get pulled back up until he was with the San Diego Padres. Yeah. But different story for a different time. In terms of the 26-man roster, there are 4 guys that are most likely going to be coming back on this team, at least according to the latest on the injury report. The ones that are most notable are obviously Yu Darvish and Fernando Tatis Jr. We still haven't gotten too many reports on Ha-Seong Kim, but I would imagine that he should be back before the start of the postseason until anything else, might linger about. And the other player that's coming back soon is Wandy Peralta, who had a rehab assignment. So he has to come back relatively soon, and he'll be probably added to the 26-man roster, and in the not-so-distant future. But if you start looking at, the pitching staff and the position players, look at the bullpen, just in alphabetical order. You got Adam, Estrada, Hoeing, Matsui, Morejon, Peralta, Scott, and Suarez. Arguably one of the best bullpens in Major League Baseball, if not the best. Your starting rotation with the addition of Darvish, Cease, Darvish, King, Musgrove, Perez, again, in alphabetical order, not necessarily in your rotation for the postseason. Then you start looking at your position players. Your catchers will stay the same, but in the infield, instead of Mason McCoy, Ha-Seong Kim will probably be back, and you got Arise, Bogarts, Cronenworth, Kim, Machado, Solano, and Wade. Then you start looking at the outfield, and when you add Fernando Tatis Jr. back, obviously Bryce Johnson probably won't be on the Major League club anymore. You got Jackson Merrill, David Peralta, Jerickson Profar, and Fernando Tatis Jr. That's a pretty good 26-man roster. You start looking at what a potential batting order could be, and obviously this could change back and forth, but just think about how long this lineup is. Lead off with Luis Arraez as a designated hitter. Bat Profar second, who plays in left field. Fernando in the 3 spot, playing right field. Machado batting cleanup at third. You got Bogarts batting fifth at second. Jake Cronenworth, who has spent a lot of time in the 3-hole, is now your 6th hitter, which I think is a sign that your team is really good if you got Cronenworth batting anywhere 6 or below. Jackson Merrill comes in at 7, playing center field. Camposano / Higashioka, your catcher, batting 8th, and then Hassan Kim rounding up the 9 and getting a fast base runner in front of the top of the order in the number 9 spot as your shortstop. That's as good of a playoff lineup as you will see, and a lot different than what we've seen for the majority of the year, where the Padres have won a lot of games. And then you talk about the bench. I mean, we always talk about having veterans on the bench. Kyle Higashioka would be one of those guys if Camposano starts. Peralta, Solano, Tyler Wade. That's a really good position player, batting order, and bench for September and October, Annie.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And just what a boost of energy that gives this team, but then what a boost of talent. You're also getting guys back that are fresh. I mean, obviously they're dealing with a little bit of injury with Fernando, but for Yu Darvish, he's got fresh legs, and somewhat so does Fernando Tatis Jr. And you've got 2 guys who rise to big moments and rise to occasions that are such like the postseason or a push to the postseason. So you can be sure that they are dreaming about it right now. They probably don't want to get too ahead of themselves. Like I said, setbacks can sometimes happen when you start ramping up. But certainly this front office and this coaching staff is at least allowing themselves, before they fall asleep at night, allowing themselves to somewhat dream of what this could look like when the Padres are going to need it most, when these games get so intense from now until the postseason, and then obviously in the postseason, those reinforcements. And yeah, I saw Jeff Sanders did a lot of news and notes for the UT over the weekend, but he had that Wandy Peralta struck out a batter in a scoreless inning in a rehab assignment on Friday at Lake Elsinore, and then he'll make another rehab appearance at a to-be-determined affiliate before potentially rejoining the Padres. So, you're looking at getting some of those guys back for sure, like with the Kims, the Peraltas, and it's going to help. Look, I know it's not as much of a sexy bullpen as it is with the acronym that you guys like so much. I'm not going to say it. Adam Scott and Suarez, but it is still reinforcements that you need as this team heads into what they hope will be a deep playoff run.
And the starting rotation, I mean, you talk about pitching, and we could maybe talk about that in the next segment when we talk about Joe Musgrove.
Yeah,
but
we can talk about Joe.
That rotation, I mean, you got guys currently in the rotation that are going to be, in long relief, but you went from having, a tough decision on who would have to start game 3 to now you have a tough decision on, I have so many guys that I can have start game 3. So something we could talk about when we come back after we talk about the Joe Musgrove start. That was great this weekend.
Yeah, and thank you, Than, in the chat. You was coming back with fresh legs. Yes, you was coming back with a fresh arm. Okay, fresh legs.
He's going to have fresh legs, though, too.
Yeah, he is.
Hey, you need to pitch with your legs.
That's right.
You pitch with your legs.
You push off of those legs.
Guys with strong legs are good pitchers. Guys with not strong legs are not as good pitchers. So, yes, fresh legs are very important for a pitcher.
That's right. Fresh body, okay?
Yes.
All right. When we come back, Blake Braden called it. We're going to get into what happened with Joe Musgrove. We're going to get into what this rotation could look like, dream a little bit upon that. Keep it right here, 97.3 The Fan. Listen to Sam Levitt's podcast, Inside San Diego Baseball. Sam will cover everything going on with the Padres. Find it at 97.3 The Fan, SD.com, the Odyssey app, or wherever you get your podcasts. Annie Heilbrin, Craig Elsten is out playing a charity golf tournament. He'll be back tomorrow, joined by Braden Soprendant. We're holding it down for you on a Monday, talking about the weekend that was for the San Diego Padres as they split the series 2-2 with the Mets, and we'll be taking you all the way to 2 p.m. here on 97.3 The Fan. So, Braden, let's get into the El Cajon kid, the hometown guy.
The foothiller?
The foothiller. The beef and bun, as Bernie Wilson.
The beef and bun.
The beef and bun guy, as Bernie Wilson would call him.
I love beef and bun. It's a great place.
I feel like Joe Musgrove's been a beef and bun. Do you?
I would imagine Joe Musgrove's been
something.
to the iconic East County staples of beef and bun and Yogurt Mill and Bottle Shop
Yes.
Pizza and whatever that Mexican food place that Bernie talks about.
I would
Ponchos
imagine.
or something? Is that what it's
Also,
called?
I think so. I don't know. But I would imagine, too. Yogurt Mill, definitely a staple in every East County kid's life.
You can get a yogurt that's like bigger than my torso.
Yes.
It's not an Italian place, even though it looks like the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
My
Even
mom
though
went
it
to go
used to
get
be.
a frozen yogurt the other day, and
A Yogurt Mill?
no, not a Yogurt Mill. She went to like a chain place, and she said that her $7 it used to be she got the same yogurt, used to be $7. Now it's $13. It's
Oh, man.
$13 for like a medium frozen yogurt.
They're going to be on the prices for things, rants. Different topic for a different day,
Okay,
different show,
Get back to Joe
different
Musgrove then.
station.
So he had that look on his face. Yeah, Sam, beef and bun. Go check it out. Yeah.
No, Sam's been there. Sam,
Okay.
Sam frequents the beef and bun. It's great stuff.
Sam's in the chat.
Yes.
He had that look on his face, Braden. He had that look on his face that he has that Joe Musgrove look where he's almost like a scowl on his face. And
Locked in.
yeah, he's locked in. He's locked in. And he looked fantastic on Friday night. 7 scoreless innings, only 1 hit. Mets hitters, after a game in which they completely, rocked it on Thursday, scored a ton of runs. We were hitting like crazy. They look like, what do we do with this guy? They look confused. They look like they just couldn't figure him out. Only 75 pitches for Joe Musgrove to get through 7 innings. He was super efficient. Debuted a new gyro slider. I kind of talked about that last week. I talked about it on Friday with a little, but success is something he's learned from Dylan Cease, and it helps him not put so much stress on the elbow, but kind of continue to use that kind of pitch. And like you just talked about, it makes you look at what this rotation could be, especially with a guy, also Joe Musgrove with fresh legs, by the way, a guy who lives. He is a competitor. You know this, Braden. He is a competitor, lives for the postseason, and those big moments, and he's someone that rises to that. And I know you, working with athletes, being the athletic softball, is it softball that you play?
I do play softball.
Softball player that you are, appreciated the athletic play he made to Jake Cronenworth to end the 6th inning, that one-hand shovel pass. It was good stuff.
Yeah, it was. Sometimes he tries to make some plays that he can't make, but he's just trying to do. I think that would have happened in spring training.
Yes, when he landed on his shoulder.
He landed on his shoulder.
Yeah, it was last year, I think. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, let's try not to have too many of those, Joe. We've got to keep you healthy as much as possible, but he was great. I mean, we could always talk about, what it would be like if we get some of these guys back, but it's always upon like them playing up to what they were before they got hurt. And there was no guarantee about Darvish, who we still have yet to see pitch for the Padres, coming back, and no guarantee that Musgrove was going to come back and be their old self. And right now, Musgrove is pitching back to his old self, which makes the excitement for the starting rotation and the bullpen for the postseason even more exciting, because you're like, we're getting vintage Musgrove back with a fresh body ready to rock and roll for this second half push, or really this final 29 game push that the Padres have going into October, where a lot of other pitchers are going to be beat up and sore and trying to make it through the entire year. And, guys that were the young guys that haven't pitched too many times are probably feeling that right now. And you got it's like adding Marshawn Lynch late in the season to make a playoff run where he's fresh and he didn't take so many hits. So you start looking at what that rotation could be like, and you really only need 3 guys, and in case of emergency, you need a 4th guy in the starting rotation. your playoff rotation of Cease, Darvish, Musgrove, and then King is your emergency guy. And plus, you got Martin Perez, who's been great for the Padres. In a pinch, if you really need a fifth guy, but you never really need a fifth guy in the postseason, move him to long relief. Now you got Perez and Hoeing in long relief. You got Morejon, Matsui, Peralta, and Estrada in the middle. And then you have your everybody's favorite acronym, Adam Scott and Suarez, as the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning close down for the Padres. We talked about the batting order and bench. I mean, you start looking at the rotation and bullpen. This team's roster is built for the postseason, not necessarily built to finish out the regular season, so hopefully they can get that taken care of. But once October rolls around, the Padres turn into one of the teams that I think everybody would like to avoid as much as possible in playoff games.
Yeah, so true. They don't want to face this team. And
I wouldn't.
and they can spoil some hopes along the way too. And the Padres do need to keep taking care of business. Nothing is promised right now. September can get wild. September can get freaky. September can be a month that can crush or boost a team. We've seen it happen so many times before. So they've got to stay focused on what they need to do in front of them. And this is going to be a big week for them in muggy St. Louis, 4 games there. I mean, talking to Derek in that last hour, doesn't sound like the Cardinals are doing too great, but there's still a team that is in the hunt, that has some good players that you still got to watch out for. And I think when you look at Joe, I think what you said is so true. You're kind of, again, when we talk about like kind of luck being on the Padres side, like Joe didn't know coming back how it was going to go for him, how he was going to feel. You're a little bit on a hope and a prayer based on how you had prepared and gotten yourself going. And he's felt great. He's been pitching great since coming back. You don't really always see that. You see guys come back and it takes them a few starts to kind of get going. Like sometimes they struggle their first few times out, then they get the feel under them again. But Joe's been fine. You would hope, hopefully the same thing goes that way for him. Martin Perez, who, like Braden said, you don't really need to even necessarily use in a starter role. You can use him out of the bullpen. You can use him for long relief. You could use him to spell for 3 innings at any period of time. And he's doing exactly what the Padres need for him to do right now. So you just start to see the forming of it happening. And, you don't want to get too ahead of yourself, but certainly they can start to see it kind of come together. And yeah, it was Joe Musgrove in the rehab start last year. He tried to save a hit or a ball from flying out or
yes,
going past him.
That's what it is. He was in a minor league rehab assignment. And you're like, whoa, Joe, what are we doing here? I know you're competitive.
Like went sideways and then fell on his shoulder, and that was after the kettlebell thing, and then he had the burning of his feet, and like had just a terrible series of injuries. And so for him to get a Joe Musgrove kind of stint coming out of this injured list this time around, that's huge for him. And Braden, I know these are the guys in the postseason that they love these kinds of moments.
They love it. Yeah, absolutely. Love playing for it. So I'm liking the way the team is shaping up. I think yesterday's victory is a major victory to help propel them here. And you start looking at the schedules for everybody else, and it's not who you play, it's when you play them. And even though that the Padres at this point have fallen a game and a half behind Arizona, now 4.5 behind LA. It's got to go through some cycles here and some ups and downs. I mean, the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers are not going to be able to keep up this pace for the entire rest of the season, just as much as we said the Padres aren't going to be able to keep up this pace for the rest. During that streak that they had. I mean, eventually, it's baseball and weird things happen. Just like yesterday, as I mentioned on the postgame show, and you and I talked about it off air. I mean, what are the odds that Francisco Lindor in back-to-back games comes to bat in the exact same inning, the top half of the 4th inning, with a 1-0 lead for the New York Mets, the bases loaded and 2 outs, in which the 2 outs started off the 4th inning. He hits a grand slam on Saturday, his 7th career grand slam, and on Sunday they bring in Hoeing and he strikes out Lindor. I mean, what a difference it makes in the 2 games, right? I mean, you think if Manny makes that play on Saturday, who knows that the Padres can win, and you're playing the hypotheticals in your head, and then you get a different result on Sunday from the exact same situation, and you know what the Padres do? Only down 2 runs instead of being down 5. Mm-hmm. They come back and they win the baseball game. So It's gonna be a fun race right now in the National League wild card. It's gonna be a fun hunt for October.
It is, and yeah, that Saturday game was weird. That was a weird game on Saturday. Brushed
Did not
past it
go
a
their
little bit.
way.
Right? Michael King, not his best start, right? But kind of tried to battle through that. Manny had that weird error, and just didn't work out when Francisco Lindor, of course, was able to hit that grand slam on Saturday. And you thought, did you think when he came to the plate yesterday, like, oh no, what are the chances here? And that would have put the Mets up by a pretty tough lead to come back from. So it was a big deal. Brian Hoeing this year inherited 14 runners and has only allowed one of them to score. He has been top notch.
He's been a nice guy at Costco.
He's been the nice Costco guy.
That's
he
right.
was the throw-in. He was the thing that you throw in your cart. That's what he was described as. You throw him in the cart. I'm changing his Costco legend status every time I talk about it. But you throw it in the cart, Braden, on your way out, and you're like, I'll just take this too. That's his new Costco. But no, he's been terrific, and he's been used in more high leverage situations with the Padres, and he likes it. He's like, yes, great. He wasn't used that way with the Marlins. He was only used in big blowouts one way or the other. So Braden mentioned what the other teams are doing and how everything is shaping up for another wild week in this National League race. We're going to get into all that after the break. Keep it right here. Annie and Elsten, 97.3 The Fan. Baseball coverage on 97.3 The Fan is presented by T-Mobile. Switch to T-Mobile and you can get tons of benefits and still save on every plan versus AT&T and Verizon. Use their savings calculator to find out how at T-Mobile.com/switch. Welcome back in, 11:42 on a Monday. Annie and Elsten, Annie Heilbron here, joined by Braden Suprenant as Craig Elsten is out golfing at a charity golf tournament. Hopefully having a good time out there, and he'll be back tomorrow. Braden, before the break, we were getting into the schedules. The schedules for these National League craziness. And you were saying they can't possibly, like Arizona and the Dodgers, can't possibly continue going at the pace they're going, which I agree with. There's going to be something that happens here, right? Like, it can't just keep going this way until the end of September. I mean, it would be pretty rare.
I mean, it'd be very impressive too at the same time. But
it'd be very impressive.
Sometimes maybe you just want them to burn themselves out in the regular season,
Yes.
right? I mean, that's also a plus. I mean, the Padres are in a really good spot right now because, as we've mentioned before this weekend started, and as I mentioned throughout the weekend on the pre and post game show, especially on Saturday night when they lost. And it looked bleak, and because the Diamondbacks won, the Dodgers ended up losing in extras, which kind of helped out. But it seemed like it was falling apart for the Padres in terms of like the top ground because the Diamondbacks they're not losing right now. They can't lose. They're on a really good hot streak. And I said, and all of a sudden the Mets were gaining ground, and the Braves have kind of turned it around. If you split with the Mets this weekend, you're in the exact same spot you were going into the weekend, which was a 5.5 game lead on the New York Mets. So that's exactly where you're at as you leave. So you're not in a position of in trouble to lose a playoff spot. And as Craig has mentioned before, and I totally agree, as well as you just got to get in the dance, right? You just got to get in the dance. But I think there's a little bit of give and take on just like having your goal be just get in the dance. Now, for a point of conversation just to ease Padres fans, yes, they need to get into the dance. But at the same time, you don't want them to just feel comfortable either. Like, they can't just coast and be like, well, we're 5.5 games in front of the Mets. Because when you feel comfortable at any point in time of where you're at, all of a sudden you start to lose ground. And then when it's getting to the nitty-gritty time, you start getting tight because you realize that, maybe the Mets have caught on, or the San Francisco Giants are right there. And then that's when mistakes start to happen. So, yes, they're in a comfortable spot, but I like that incentive of being within a couple of games of the division to give them that incentive to keep winning, to be able to go get that top wild card spot or even a division spot. And I think it's going to play out a little bit better in the Padres' favor here in the next couple of weeks because of the way, I know these teams are winning, but they got some tough schedules. The Dodgers, maybe not so much, but Arizona, out of their next 32 games, 25 of those games were against teams above 500. And I know they've been doing well, but they
just swept the Red Sox.
Yeah, that's which is impressive. The Padres should have done that in reality. But they got the Mets, the Dodgers.
They could really kill the Mets this
yes,
weekend.
They could.
If they sweep the Mets, or they, the Mets, it's crazy because it's still pretty bunched up. Like you say, like there's still a carrot dangling in front of the Padres because they're well within the division leader, being the division leader. And then behind them, they're 5.5 games above the Mets, which is significant, but it's not like 15 games or 10 games,
it's not insurmountable.
But they're all kind of playing each other, so someone's going to have to fall and someone's going to have to rise. Like the Mets, the Diamondbacks have a chance here to really push down the Mets, or the Mets, if the Diamondbacks have a bad series and the Mets have a good one, and the Padres have a good one, the Padres can jump over the Diamondbacks easily.
The thing I can say about the Mets is their backs are against the wall, so they're going to have a little bit more. They don't have that. They're not comfortable. Right, where like
exactly.
Diamondbacks, the Diamondbacks are in a very comfortable spot, being 7 games in front of the Mets, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the Mets are now 2.5 back. They gave up they should have had they should have had a win in the bag yesterday, right? Bullpen gives it up with the 2-run bomb to Profar, and then Diaz gives it up in the 9th. I mean, that's as much as that was like such an exhilarating win for the Padres. That is a heartbreaking loss for the Mets, who as part of this stretch. I think they took 2 out of 3 from Baltimore this week, which is tough. And then they had to deal with the Padres, for 4. And you split with the Padres on the road, which is tough for East Coast teams coming out west. And now you got Arizona. I mean, they're weathering the storm as much as they can during this tough group for the New York Mets before they got to take on the White Sox. But, yesterday is a gut punch to that Mets team that thought they could potentially be 1.5 games back behind Atlanta after Atlanta lost yesterday.
Absolutely. And that's another thing. Atlanta lost yesterday. That was 1,000%. And like you said, heartbreaking because you have the lead. You don't have a huge lead, but you have the lead for most of the game. You are in the driver's seat. They were trying to get out of San Diego, taking 3 out of 4. That would have been a huge win. Would have hurt the Padres a little, but wouldn't have been that horrible. I mean, it would have hurt them a little, but not terrible. But it hurt the Mets more to only split the series with the Padres and not pull out their oh my God sign. They had no my God yesterday. And when Diaz allowed that Jackson Merrill hit. So. I agree with you like that. And now if they go to Arizona and they face an Arizona team that continues to stay hot, this is gonna be tough for the Mets. But anyways,
you start looking at it, and I think it's it's interesting to see how these teams are playing out. And I try to color code it on our sheet in terms of like the best teams in the league, above 500, below 500. I'd have to update that with Philly just because Philly got passed. But in reality, Philly's been the best team in the National League for the majority of the year. It's now the Dodgers.
Where are the Dodgers going this week?
Dodgers got Baltimore.
They're okay.
And then they got Arizona. So there's 7 games right there for LA.
Yeah.
In which the Padres 7 against St. Louis and Tampa. I mean, they can make some ground up again.
And then the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks facing each other. Someone's going to have to win those games.
You're going to be picking up, as long as you take care of business against Tampa Bay. If you take 2 out of 3 from Tampa Bay and those two teams split, I mean, you're gonna pick up a game on both of them, right? I mean,
someone's gonna lose.
So it'd be nice for one of them to take 3 out of 4 from the other. Most notably, I guess it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, who do you want to win that? The Dodgers or the Diamondbacks? What is it?
It depends how much you want the division. I mean, but to me,
I would say so
I mean, look at the schedule though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the Dodgers schedule, they got 3 against Baltimore. So they got 31 games left. The rest of August, they got Baltimore and Arizona for 7 games, which is tough.
Yeah.
Then they got the Halos for 2, right? I mean, that's going to be a walk in the park. Baseball's weird case. You never know. Then they got Cleveland. Cleveland are one of the best teams in the American League, right? They're the second best team in the American League right now. And then they got the Cubs. I mean, they're hanging around, but that's not like a world beater team. They're still under 500.
Yeah.
Then they got 4 at Atlanta. Atlanta might be in desperation mode by that time, but you don't really know. And then it's Miami and Colorado, Padres, Colorado. So to me, the team that's going to have more opportunities to separate themselves in terms of the Dodgers and who they got to play, when they got to play them, and the Diamondbacks. You really need the Diamondbacks to do some damage against the Dodgers if that's what your goal is the division. Now, if you're going to take Craig's philosophy of until you're 20 games above 500, don't worry about it, then the Dodgers could do you a favor, take 3 out of 4 from Arizona. Padres do well against Tampa and St. Louis, and all of a sudden you're back in control because the division is just icing on the cake. And, you want that top wild card spot so you can host the wild card playoff. I think that's a different way to look at it. And honestly, I don't think either way is right or wrong. I think it just depends on what your perspective is. Do you want to hold out all hope for the division, or do you want to play it safe and be like, we want the top wild card spot? That's how your rooting interest may go. But the reality is it's going to be a win-win for the Padres as long as the Padres can win the series in Tampa.
As long as they take care of business. The only situation in which this doesn't turn out well for the Padres is if the Padres don't take care of business on their own, and it's just kind of like the standings kind of remain the same because they're all dropping, So Jocelyn in the chat says, I want both the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks to lose all 4 games. Is that possible? Yes,
No.
I think it's not
Yeah,
possible.
can both
but
teams lose?
I think I think everybody would agree with that. But no, I think, look, I think here's what I think. Like, you need to make it you want the main goal is to make the playoffs. However you get in, however that is, just get your butt into the playoffs, right?
I think they're in a safe spot right
I think they're in a safe spot. I think you play to the best of your ability, and this is what they want to do, right, heading into the playoffs, but you don't sell yourself out to try to get wins for the division if that means, like, hurting yourself. Like, if you're just playing your best brand of baseball and you are encroaching on the Dodgers and you pass them up, great. But I don't think you desperately put yourself in position to hurt yourselves in some way.
I don't think Mike
trying to
Schill
sell out for the division
is looking at the out-of-town scoreboard this week in St. Louis, seeing what the Dodgers score is in Baltimore and being like, oh, they're winning right now. We might be down 4 runs, but we gotta preserve this. We gotta try to go after it. Let's throw Tanner Scott
right
with no days rest.
Back days of whatever, and
the team's not going to do that.
Exactly, they're not going to do that. And I also think you got Mike Schilt going back like. This is what Derek was talking about in the interview. Mike Schilt is going to want to win these games in St. Louis. Okay,
he's got this series circled for
sure.
sure.
He's going to act like he doesn't, and he's going to play it off in his pressers. He wants blood on these series, on this series. Okay, and so the Padres are going to go in there and try to get that done for their manager. Try to win as they have been. But yeah, I mean, like there are some here, Braden. I think you illustrate it really well. Like. They have the harder schedules in terms of the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks, right?
Look at the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
3 against the Mets, who we just saw. 4 against L.A. Take what you want about San Francisco. They're a 500 team that's still battling for a playoff spot. They got to go to San Francisco to start September. 3 in Houston. They got 2 against their natural rival, I guess, the Texas Rangers. And then they got 3 against Milwaukee, who is now competing for the number 1 seed in the National League. They climbed up in that category and are within a game and a half of the Dodgers for that. Then they got 3 at Colorado, and then they finished the season 4 at Milwaukee, 3 against San Francisco, and 3 against the Padres. And they only have 5 games. They only have 5 games against teams that are below 500. The rest of their 30 games are against teams above 500. I mean, that's a tough road for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I will say this too, is because people are freaking out about Diamondbacks and Dodgers aren't losing, and the Padres had a couple of rough games here and there. Padres are on tonight is game 11 of 18 straight. So that's going to put it out in a time of the year where it's tough playing baseball because it's late in the year, it's hotter than the sun. Everywhere you go play, it's the dog days of summer. The worst time to have 18 straight games and 26 to 27 are in the dog days of summer, and the Padres are in the middle of that right now.
And they're in the middle of it, and if they can get out of this with a winning record, they get into a September where they have 5 days. I think it's 5 days off. They've got multiple days off. They're supposed to be getting guys back. Great situation for them. We got the Sports Fix up next at 12 o'clock. Keep it right here. 12 o'clock on a Monday. Welcome back into Annie and Elsten. Annie Heilbron here, joined by Braden Soprendant, Craig Elsten out at a charity golf tournament. We're going to be taking you through all the way to 2 p.m. and then followed by Gwen and Chris, Matt Scraby. And then Matt Scraby is going to take you with the Padres pregame show. Padres baseball on at 4:45 today. So an early game for everyone as they take on the Cardinals in St. Louis. But we've got a lot to get to in the world of sports. Sports Fix right now. All right, it is noon. Let's get it going on the Sports Fix. We're going to hit you with a few interesting stories that are happening today or happened over the weekend. So starting off with Danny Jansen. Danny Jansen will make history. The Red Sox catcher will be finishing a game that he started as a player on the opposing team today. In doing so, Jansen will go down in Major League Baseball history as the first person to play for both teams in the same game. So let me set this up a little. He was playing for Toronto on June 26 when the game was suspended in the second inning because of heavy rain at Fenway Park. Before the game was halted, Jansen was at bat for the Blue Jays. A month later, he gets traded to the Red Sox with the team hoping to make use of his right-handed bat, strengthen its catching core. And today, 2 months from the original game on June 26th, play will resume, but this time, Jansen will be behind the plate and in a Red Sox jersey, and the Jays will have a pinch hitter in Jansen's place. Braden, on the spectrum of baseball is weird, where does this fall for you?
As weird as possible. It's never happened before, and that's always been like something in the back of my mind at the trade deadline on something like, well, when you see these, it's the makeup is not until August, whatever, and then you're just like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if that guy got traded?
Yes.
And then had played the team, or they switched the sides after the long rain delay? This is the coolest thing that could potentially happen in baseball. I'm sure the official scorekeeper's scorecard will be into the will go to Cooperstown and be part of the Hall of Fame, but what a crazy story. I love it.
Yeah, you're going to have to put like an asterisk on the scorecard, like player traded, and now he's on the defense and, or on the other side. But yeah, I love it too. It's just it's a baseball's weird story, but it's a baseball's cool story because people were like
100%.
waiting for this one, right? Okay. The Detroit Tigers set the Chicago White Sox to their 100th loss with a 9-4 victory yesterday. Chicago will fall short of the all-time record held by the Cleveland Spiders, of course, who finished 20 and 134 in 1899. Ye old days of 1899 baseball. We were not alive.
What a great time.
What a great time for all of them. But the Tigers are the second fastest the White Sox are the second fastest to reach 100 losses in the modern era. Only the 1916 Philadelphia A's, who are 29 and 101, reached 100 losses in fewer games than the White Sox. Do you think that they are going to hold this record for a while, or do you think that there's another team that's going to encroach on this 100-loss record faster than they did this year? I mean, they're the second team to, they're still.
I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not either.
It's
bad
hope
for
not.
baseball.
It is bad for baseball. These teams should be competitive. It should be it's a big reason why the NFL is king for a lot of different reasons. One of them being that all the teams are good and relatively evenly matched.
Yeah.
And in baseball, you play so many games. I mean, for the White Sox are just so bad. It's just you can't even explain how bad they are. So 100 losses by August 25th is ridiculous. So hopefully that's not the case. I think about that is so hard to do.
It is. It's like you think luck kind of helps you out a little bit on that.
It's just hard. It's an accomplishment. It's hard to do. I mean, if you tried to do it, you couldn't do it. You couldn't even do it if you tried.
Like a lot of times, no, Braden's right. Like a lot of the times, the game would just go your way somehow. And, you have enough. These are all still major league players. There's enough. I know it seems like they have no talent, but they do have talent. There are talented players on this team. it's not going well for them. I
Just
kind
the
of
sport of baseball.
just the sport of baseball. Like you would just think that you get a hit here or there or something, an error that helps you out or whatever.
Right. Weird things happen. That's why it's like, I don't think it will ever happen. I don't think it.
Tyler in the chat, I think, though, has a good point. 2025 Sacramento A's are going to lose more, or they'll die of heat stroke before the 7th. I hope they don't die, Tyler. But yeah, I think the Sacramento A's might.
Those new California rules for the high school kids, is that going to apply on the heat index for the major league games?
Right. They are playing in a minor league ballpark.
It's outside. It's hot.
I feel like it should apply. It's kind of like a minor league team.
What the heck?
That's not their fault. So
I mean,
don't mean to be mean to you, A's.
The A's this year are not trying to win at all, and they're winning.
Yeah, they are.
Enough. They're not last.
Mark Kotze is keeping them in check. Yeah.
Right. I mean, even if you're it's hard to do.
Okay, almost the last story, second to last story. The Marlins will promote outfield prospect Griffin Conine before their game against the Rockies on Monday. Conine is the son of two-time World Series champion Jeff Conine, known to fans as Mr. Marlin, widely considered one of the better players in the franchise's history. The younger Conine, Griffin, is 27, enjoying a solid season at AAA Jacksonville with 19 home runs, 825 OPS. Braden,
he's a jumbo shrimp.
Did you ever pay attention to Mr. Marlin?
Mr. Marlin? Not really. He's on the other coast.
I know. Yeah, it's not.
As much as I'm like a big baseball fan and stuff like that.
Same here, though. It's kind of like Mr. Marlin.
I'm focused in on the San Diego Padres, the NL West, and then the National League, and then finally go over there. At least it's not. If it was an American League East guy, I would no, I don't care.
Yeah, it doesn't really ring a bell. Exciting, I guess, if you're the Marlins and you had a lot of good history with Mr. Marlin. You're like, okay, well, the season's pretty much shot to death, so we'll look forward to Griffin.
Yeah, here's this.
The kid coming up, I guess. That's good. That's where that's where the Padres used to be, guys. They used to be at this point in August and September, looking forward to whatever farm guys were coming up and just getting a look at them because that was like the only hope of anything. And now you're in a playoff push and a playoff race. So speaking of the Padres, short trip, we talked about it for right-hander Lake Bacher, added to the active roster prior to yesterday's game with the Mets. He was a fifth-round pick for the Padres in 2016, was in line to make his major league debut in his 9th pro season, except he didn't pitch. They didn't need him. He was just there for some bullpen coverage. And Randy Vasquez was just recalled to start today's game in St. Louis. So he'll probably take that spot that Matt Waldron had before Yu Darvish is back. We'll continue to find out a little bit more about that timeline as the days go on. The Padres won yesterday's game 3-2 in walk-off fashion thanks to Jackson Merrill. Split the series with the Mets 2-2. They continue their stretch of 18 games in 18 days and will play the Cardinals in St. Louis today. First game of a 4-game set. It'll be Kyle Gibson for the Cardinals. As I said, Randy Vasquez for the Padres. First pitch, 4:45 p.m. Braden, what you got?
Got some football to report on, high school, college, and the National Football League. We'll talk more about college football later on in the show. I do want to mention some of the scores from the high school football Friday nights. Did not get the top 10 yet, which is interesting. Thanks, John. I'm sure he's got to calculate all of the top 10 votes from all the media members. But last Friday had some good games throughout San Diego County. Go through some of the teams that were ranked. Del Norte, 12th ranked team, according to Cal Preps, beat the 24th ranked Point Loma Pointers 20-7. Mount Miguel left town and came back with a 47-15 win over St. Anthony. San Marcos all over Rancho Buena Vista on Friday, 53-8. Foothill comes down to beat Madison 28-20. Brawley gets a win out in the desert as they played Palm Desert. They won 36-20. Sweetwater with a big win over Morse. They won 31-6. Carlsbad went to Lakewood out of town. They lost 20-17. La Costa Canyon over St. Augustine, 37-10. Patrick Henry and Grossmont. What a shootout we had in East County. Patrick Henry won 77-48.
Oh my god!
Score is like 50-35 at halftime or something ridiculous.
They don't call those. They don't call once it hits past 50 or 60 points. I guess you don't call them.
You have a running clock.
77 points. Yeah, you got to play all.
You get a running clock after you're up 35 points. I mean, even though Patrick Henry scored 77, they gave up 48 points in a high school football game.
I guess that's a lot.
Steel Canyon over Ramona, 51-41. I'm sure Scratch was partying on his way down from Ramona. down traveling in East County. East Lake over Bonita, 34-6. San Juan Hills hammered Oceanside.
Oh, Scratch is in the chat.
Oh, Scratch is back. Had a good time up there in Ramona. Hopefully stopped by at Cheers on the way out.
Hopefully he has all his fur on him still.
Yeah,
and,
exactly. Getting a fight with a Ramona Bulldog up there.
That's right.
He obviously won the fight. You should see the other guy. El Camino over Helix 49-20. Granite Hills beats Mission Hills 28-17. Cathedral Catholic over Modern Day Catholic 56-28. And Eric Weddle got the dub for I think his first dub as the official head coach of the Rancho Bernardo Broncos. They beat the rival Poway Titans 13-10. I think.
Congrats to Weddle. That's great.
Somebody in our chat has like a kid at each school. I think it's M. McKee. I think that's who it is. So RB, I don't know how the house was divided after that game. Hopefully you're not putting out too many tears on that one. But that fun scores. And La Jolla remains supreme in La Jolla as they defeat their crosstown rival in the Bishop Knights 38-21. That's the scores for you in the high school realm. College football news, we have two stories for you. We'll start with the one that involves San Diego. San Diego's product, or should I say Lincoln Hornets, Roderick Robinson II, is out for their game against Clemson, Georgia's game against Clemson. Kirby Smart isn't ready to say whether Florida transfer Trevor Etienne will be available to play in Saturday's opener against Clemson, but the number one Bulldogs know they probably won't have at least one of their top running backs in Lincoln Hornet Roderick Robinson II, who recently underwent surgery to repair a toe injury. While Smart said Robinson would probably be week to week, he isn't expected to play against the Tigers on Saturday at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Robinson, a sophomore from San Diego, is the Bulldogs' top returning rusher with 196 yards and 2 touchdowns in 2023. Bulldogs lost their top rushers from last season in Deshaun Edwards and Kendall Milton. So, hopefully we can see Roderick Robinson on the field sooner rather than later. San Diego product on the number one team in the country.
And now, just a tiny accuracy fact check. Brian in the chat, it is Weddle's second season
as
coach.
The acting head coach.
See, I know there was a period where he was with the other guy, with the former head coach.
He coached last year with Tristan McCoy.
Okay.
And I think this was the first year he was the official head coach.
I'll try to find that out.
But I'm not sure. But he got the
Anyways, he got the win. Okay.
Correct.
Congrats, Weddle.
But he has been there for more than one. This is not his first year at the school.
Okay. Right, correct.
Interesting one. And we have had, on previous shows, have had this columnist, Sean Keeler, on the show in the past. He's a great interview. We might have to get him on because Colorado has banned him from asking questions of football coach Deion Sanders or other members of the football program, the school confirmed Friday. Sean Keeler doesn't beat around the bush when he criticizes.
He the CBS guy that got?
No. This is a different guy. This is a guy that writes. Sean Keeler, and again, I can get him on the show. He's a great interview. He's a really good guy.
Because the first guy that Deion got into was a CBS top 5 or bottom 5 coaches, but he told the CBS reporter, "This isn't your fault. I don't have anything against you.
Right.
He
had a problem with
the national
CBS and then
CBS coverage.
The poor local CBS affiliate
right.
guy had to whatever. Had to deal with Deion's crap. Sean Keeler's a columnist for the Denver Post. Again, he's been on these airwaves before. Quote, after a series of sustained personal attacks on the football program and specifically Coach Prime, that's what they listed him as.
Coach Prime.
This is the official statement from Colorado University.
Okay.
The CU athletic department, in conjunction with the football program, have decided to not take questions from Denver Post columnist Sean Keeler at football-related events. The athletic department said in a statement provided to ESPN, Keeler is still permitted to attend football-related activities as a credentialed media member, and other reporters from the Denver Post are welcome to ask questions of the football program personnel made available to the media, including coaches, players, and staff.
Wait, what did he say? What did he do wrong?
I'm getting to that right now.
Oh, sorry.
According to the Post, the Colorado Athletic Department media relations staffer told the newspaper it took issue with Keeler's references to Sanders as, quote, deposition Deion, quote, Bruce Lee of BS, quote, false prophet, and use of phrases such as Planet Prime, the Deion Kool-Aid, and, quote, circus. The ban is indefinite, according to the Post. The decision comes 2 weeks after the news conference in which Sanders accused Keeler of always being on the attack and asked, what happened to get you like this? Added Sanders, no, I'm serious. I want to help because it's not normal. Based on some kids that I know that have played in that program, it is a circus there. I know their compliance office is backloaded on tons of kids getting cut from the program that have to transfer out. But Deion Sanders is trying to run his football program in college like an NFL team, which, by the way, I don't know. You can't do that because kids are enrolled in school. And so you can't just be like, talk to our travel secretary. He will get you situated on how to fly back. The kid's still enrolled at school. He's got to finish school.
Yeah.
So when they decided to cut a bunch of players in the springtime, even like during spring ball, the kids had to finish out the rest of the year at Colorado before they could go anywhere. So there's a lot of there's interesting parts over there. I do think it's hilarious, though, that they don't mind him still covering the team. He just can't ask questions now.
I mean, this is interesting. So first of all, I try to at least provide some perspective on the journalism side, and he is a columnist, so he gets some liberties as a columnist. A columnist is different than a beat reporter.
He gives some opinions.
He gives opinions. He can take some liberties with his imagery and the way he describes. However, I guess some of these could be maybe seen as a little bit below the belt, right? So he can still be at the practices, can't ask any questions. It's just kind of weird. And then that coming off of that CBS reporter thing, it's just kind of like, to me, sometimes you draw more attention to it by putting all these restrictions on it and on these other reporters. If you just sort of like let it flow off your back, it's kind of like it doesn't, you kind of let them know that they bothered you. So I don't know. I mean, this whole thing is kind of weird, this Deion Sanders thing that happens
the
at
whole
Colorado.
saga is
yeah,
super
like the
weird.
whole saga continues to take more twists and turns.
He still thinks he can run the organization like a professional football team, which you cannot, because there's still things that these college kids still have to do in college.
And then like the guy before. So I guess this columnist asked if he could ask a football question, and Deion wouldn't let him. But then a reporter asked Deion about his birthday plans, and then asked how important it is to have Aflac as part of their life. So that's their insurance sponsor. So they wanted to get like an insurance sponsor question in. So
during the media
press conference. So I mean,
I could see why quote circus was used.
This is just kind of
circus.
Yeah, it's a circus.
It's a circus.
It just
I
doesn't
don't care.
look good for anyone.
I don't care if I'm banned from Colorado's media thing, but it's like, why would you continue to let him cover the team then? Because they obviously like the coverage, but they're like, we don't want you asking us questions because you don't ask the questions we want you to ask.
But like, if he did something super egregious, he would get his credential revoked. He wouldn't be allowed to even be near this team. He wouldn't be allowed to come to any practices or be part of anything.
I don't think anything that he has been at least quoted in this article of saying is being egregious or, quote, a personal attack. I mean, a lot of based on what is happening at Colorado, a lot of this is very warranted. I mean, he is having his opinion on how this program is currently being run, a program that has assumed that they've won a lot of games, but a program that finished dead last in the Pac-12 last year with one conference win.
Yeah, to me, it's kind of like, hey, just let it slide off your back. I mean, he's got to be used to, people saying things, and sometimes it's better to not even acknowledge that you hear the haters or you hear any of it,
Sean Keeler on these airwaves said, Deion is the world's largest helicopter parent. And I totally agree with that. That's like, if his kids weren't part of the program, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to come to a head very soon.
It's going to keep going. This is going to be entertainment from here on
I think we got to get Keeler on.
Okay, let's get
I'll put the call in. You could ask him all the journalism questions. It'd be great. NFL news, Dallas Cowboys wideout CeeDee Lamb has ended his holdout. Excuse me.
It's all good.
And agreed to a 4-year, $136 million deal that makes him the second highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, sources told ESPN's Adam Schefter on Monday. Deal includes $38 million signing bonus, largest ever given to a wide receiver, $100 million guaranteed. Lamb was set to play the 2024 season on the $17.99 million fifth-year option of his rookie deal and become a free agent after the season, but the Cowboys were able to lock him up through the 2028 season with the new deal. Is this a good deal for the Cowboys, knowing that they still have to sign Micah Parsons and Dak Prescott, or did they spend too much money on a receiver?
How much was it? Sorry, I keep asking Braden questions when he's
$136 million on a 4-year deal.
I mean, do the Cowboys? I feel like the Cowboys just continue to find money, but they do have they do have to stay within reason, right? Like they've got to figure out the rest of their roster. So it's not like baseball. I think they maybe. I think maybe it sounds like
as long as they can sign Micah Parsons.
If they can sign Micah, then yes.
Then it's good.
I think it's fine. Yeah.
Because they have to sign Micah, CD, and Dak.
Micah's a big deal, right?
How you would do it if you want to be a successful team, you sign the defensive lineman who's the best, or defensive everything, who is the best defensive player in all of the NFL first, and then you sign your quarterback because you can't not have him and be in quarterback hell. And then the last guy is CD. And if you can only sign 2, the guy I'm not signing is CD. And that's the guy that they signed first.
They probably got it done the easiest with him because he's like, heck yeah. Like, that sounds good to me.
Right. I'm not a huge favor in I'm not a huge favor in signing receivers to mega deals because receivers in the National Football League are a dime a dozen, unless the guy's like Calvin Johnson. And there's a very small list of guys that would be the Calvin Johnson, Jerry Rice type player that is the big impact guy.
You do got to lock down the other guys, too. You got to make sure that, you've got the core set before.
Your trenches have to be legit.
Your trenches,
you
got to
have a quarterback. Especially in this day and age, you got to have a quarterback. If you have a good quarterback, they'll make. I mean, look at the receivers that Mahomes has had.
Right.
I know he had Tyreek Hill. He went without Tyreek Hill.
He'll make it work.
And I know he's got the tight end. And I mean, last year the receivers for the Chiefs weren't like the best.
No.
They were good, but they were the best. Good quarterback. I mean, Tom Brady did not have a lot of weapons in New England.
Right.
For the majority part of his career.
I mean, the great ones do it. The great ones figure it out. The great ones are able to connect with their receivers and make a receiver look good. And the receivers can make the quarterback look good, but it's like you got to have that pretty much in place before you start signing the big receiver deals.
Phillip Rivers went down to Houston with Sehi Ajera-Tutu as his number 1 receiver, and they won.
Man,
and Sehi got 3 touchdowns. And I'm pretty sure in the post-game press conference he said, I just learned Tutu's name about five minutes before the game started.
I remember that. There was times that he had no one.
Nothing.
Injuries out there, whatever. And he was throwing in guys that just came up off the practice squad and still winning some of those games.
I have to get Sean Keeler on. I got to hear the drama. He's a pretty good interview. I'm going to have to put the call out. I mean, I don't know why you would continually. Why would you give him a credential still and just be like, you can't ask questions?
That's weird.
Is that what we're going to in sports media? I mean,
right.
Let's not give anybody else any ideas here.
You can just stay silent. You can just sit there quietly. You can watch the whole thing, but you can't ask any questions.
Why even have a press conference?
Yeah.
I mean, Colorado at this point should just have a closed press conference just with their own employees and just have propaganda. I mean, who's challenging them on that?
I think at this point, after the thing happened with the CBS reporter, and like Dion said, it wasn't this guy's fault, but he's part of the network, and he didn't want to answer any questions from him because of what the list that CBS put out. Then you have this columnist guy. You create a culture, which is probably fine with them. You create a culture where no one wants to ask really any questions or say anything all that derogatory because everyone's so sensitive. It's really nothing different than any other football program that has been criticized over the years or any other program that's been criticized. I mean, it's one thing if you're going like super, something that is like racially informed or something derogatory about a family member, whatever, but if it's just typical stuff, which it sounds like it is.
They look like typical columnist
stuff.
I've seen Nick Canepa write some stuff that
yes.
is more insane than that.
Yes.
Not saying it's wrong, but that's what columnists do. Right? They got to get their that's what a column is. He's not the beat writer.
And it's not a great idea. Adam in the chat says he still has his news outlet to write. I tell you what, that the pen is mightier than the sword a lot of times. And when they still have the ability to go to the newspaper and write stuff and put it out there, you got to be careful with how much leash you put on some of these people because they'll put it all out there. They'll put it out there like this is what's going on, and it'll be in print and recorded in history for everyone to see.
Yeah, Sean Keeler is savvy enough where I'm sure he's going to be able to come up with some great stuff. And by the way, he probably doesn't have to drive up to Boulder to do it. He could probably watch him on TV and still write the same columns.
If Dion doesn't have a fantastic season, where do they go from here?
Oh, they'll keep Dion forever until he leaves. They're making so much money right now. This is the most talked about Colorado's been since they won a national championship in the 90s.
They didn't have the great season last year, right?
No, they were bad. I mean, their biggest claim to fame was TCU got complacent enough to go to the national championship game and laid an egg at home. and then they they barely beat Colorado State, and they beat Nebraska, who's been terrible. And then they go to Oregon and got run out of the building against the Oregon Ducks. But
you think they're still enamored with him, or do you think that like the rust is like kind of
oh,
showing through a
they're
little bit?
still in the honeymoon phase in Colorado for
Okay.
sure. I mean, Colorado football's season tickets are sold out.
Oh, okay.
They were awful. I mean, they're been
making money.
awful
Yeah.
until
Yeah.
he showed. I mean, it's not like they're not much better now, but
But they're selling out games. There's
Selling out
high
games.
interest. It's on nationally, right? He's
Hey.
big news.
they're in the Big 12 now, though. I mean, they got They start the season with North Dakota State on Thursday. North Dakota State's an FCS team. North Dakota State's the best FCS team like in the last decade. They almost went. They haven't won the last couple of years, but they are good enough to beat a D1 school, and that's I could see North Dakota State beating Colorado. Then they got Nebraska with Matt Rule's second year as the head coach. They're expected to be a lot better. Colorado State, I'm sure they'll hammer them, and then they go to Big 12 play of Baylor, and they got to go down to the Bounce House. What you know about the Bounce House, Annie?
Yeah.
UCF, the Bounce
Yeah.
House, which is a tough place to play. They got K-State, Arizona. They got Cincinnati, Utah, who destroyed them last year. They got to play Texas Tech, Oklahoma State. I mean, this ain't your usual push Pac-12 schedule there, Colorado. You got to play the big bad boys of the Big 12.
Is it a danger thing when the place shakes like it does in the Bounce House, or is it like no?
I don't know.
We're just,
I just know that I just know teams go down there that are really good to die because Oklahoma
they
State.
never come out the same.
Oklahoma State last year had a good opportunity to win the Big 12 conference. They went down to UCF. They were like top 15 in the country, and UCF wasn't ranked. And Oklahoma State lost by 45 points. I mean, they got embarrassed.
I see.
So-
It was found to be susceptible to considerable shaking when its crowd jumps in unison. Measures were undertaken following the stadium's inaugural season to reduce these effects to ensure safety. To this day, many still point out the movement has not improved. So
Bounce
it's still
house.
shaking.
It
It's
still
shaking.
shakes.
Braden, they go in there, they never come out the same.
No.
That's essentially what you just said.
That
It's
is
like
where
the House of Horrors.
That is where now
Halloween.
there and Lubbock, Texas are where Big 12 dreams go to die. If you have a night game at the Bounce House or a night game in Lubbock, or most notably a weekday night game in Lubbock or the Bounce House, it's over. Your season's over.
It's a
Especially
wrap.
if you're ranked.
It's a wrap. You go in there,
where
you're
the
just shaking
season
your
goes to
head.
die.
This is it. This is it.
Annie, you're not prepared for college football, Braden. It's going to be fun.
Okay. It's
And
gonna be a lot of fun.
Jake Waters is a major contributor to the college football realm, and I'm sure he'll have some great jokes in the chat as the season continues. But we're well over break.
We're well out of a break, and when we come back, I think you guys are gonna love this.
It's gonna be quick.
It's gonna be a great rant by someone that you might not always appreciate, but he really had San Diego's back on this one. After the break, when we return on Annie and Elsten, keep it here. 12:33 on a Monday as we bring you back into the Annie and Elsten show. Annie Heilbrunn here, joined by Braden Suprenant. Craig Elsten is golfing in a charity tournament. We wish him luck. And let me quickly get to this hour on 97.3, which is brought to you by Floor & Decor. Unbeatable prices, unmatched in-stock selection. Floor & Decor has more styles of laminate, vinyl, tile, wood, and stone for anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor. Floor & Decor, unbeatable prices, unmatched in-stock selection. So this popped into my timeline over the weekend. Little bit of a rant by one Mad Dog. What's his name? Chris Russo? What's his name? Chris Russo. Okay, I always call him Mad Dog. I don't even know how they got into it, Braden. I don't even know how it came up. But he had some words to say about the former NFL team that used to be in San Diego Chargers. And man, did he sell this bit. So we are going to take a listen. The segment is called "What Are You Mad About?" Here he goes, Chris Russo.
I can't believe he's mad about this. He's great.
He's mad. I mean, how many years? We'll react to it after the break. Let's just hear him out first.
I was driving in here. This is in downtown Los Angeles this morning at 6 o'clock. And I was looking at the city, and I asked a couple of people when I got out of the car. I says, "Does anybody care about the Chargers here?" And I love the Chargers, but the Chargers have, look at all the other fan bases. The fact that owner, Spanos, decided to move to L.A. to rent a stadium. Look at this. They never have a home game. This is a joke. Why are the Chargers playing football in Los Angeles? They should be in San Diego. I know I'm a little late with this. They can bring George Hallison and Lombardi. I don't care about Harbaugh. Nobody cares. They have no fan base. Nobody in L.A. cares. They care about LeBron. They care about the Dodgers and a little about the Rams. They don't even care that much about the Clippers, and they got their own arena this year. But the Chargers playing their home football games in L.A. is so stupid and asinine. The fact that the Chargers are still not in San Diego, that is a complete foul-up, and Spanos did a horrendous job leaving. Now, you're going to sit there and tell me you got a sweetheart deal? He couldn't get a new stadium in San Diego? Listen, when you don't have the leverage, which he did not have the leverage in San Diego, you can't pick up and leave, basically like the kid who doesn't get picked in a basketball game in the playground and picks up his basketball and goes home so nobody can play. You can't do that to your franchise. So now the Chargers are playing 150 miles to the north in a city that has no interest in them. They could care less. Harper they don't care about. The defense, nobody. The Chargers are going to play the next 50 years, Steve, in a city that's going to sell out and have more fans for the opposing team than the Chargers, who basically got to take timeouts on offense because the defensive chance from the fan base. This is a mess, the Chargers here in L.A.
The Chargers moved to LA in 2017. This will be their 8th season playing in Los Angeles. And that mad dog, Chris Russo, has jumped on the train on ESPN. I don't care how old it is. Okay, every fan in San Diego that used to be of the San Diego Chargers is right now like, even though he did say he loves the Chargers, whatever, but is like, yes, sir. Yes, that is all of us.
That was great because people are like, well, why is it so late on the game? I mean, the fact that it's like 7-8 years later and they're still talking about this is great. It's so great. It's hilarious, but they don't care, right? I mean, the NFL doesn't care, but I think it's awesome. And the more that we continue not to support them, instead just make fun of them, makes it even better. I mean, it's great when you got the usual traditionalists on national media that kind of tote the line and follow the league. For a lot of different things,
right.
saying this, and a lot of media people say it, and I've never really heard anybody go like, "Ah, man, this is great that they're in Los Angeles." And the fact that they've added, I mean, think about all the players that they've added. Think about the talent that they have, the huge case with Harbaugh and everything. I mean, they can't get LA to care about him at all, and it continues, and thanks to Christopher Russo.
Yeah, I mean, 7-8 years later, this is still the narrative that's going on around national media on ESPN on a huge show. Tells you a lot about what's going on. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to react a little bit more to this and everything else going on in sports. Keep it right here. Annie and Elsten, 97.3 The Fan. Bringing you home on a Monday, 12:44 p.m. Annie and Elsten on 97.3 The Fan, San Diego's #1 sports station. I'm Annie Heilbrunn, joined by Braden Suprenant. Craig Elsten out on a charity golf tournament. He'll be back tomorrow, though, and we'll take you through to 2 o'clock. Turn the reins over to Gwen and Chris, who will then pass it on to Matt Scraby, who's filling in for Sam Levitt on the Padres pregame show. Braden, you're going to be actually calling a game, right, tonight, not to...
Yeah, USD and San Diego State men's soccer at Torero Stadium. Last year it was a 1-1 draw at Snapdragon when San Diego State hosted. This year, see what happens. USD tied Duke, ranked Duke.
City
championship?
Championship, yeah.
Yes, I think that's what they call it in basketball, which we haven't seen in a long time. But yes, USD, San Diego State, always fun when two of the local D1 schools get together in any sort of capacity.
All right, well, let's reach in and let's grab onto a few national headlines that happened over the weekend. We just talked about the one that happened with Chris Russo and the San Diego Chargers. And again, I thought the point that he made too about the Padres, like, look at what this city has become with the Padres taking over, having good seasons, investing in their team, investing in their ballpark. Look at what has grown out of that. I think that was like a big point to take away from that whole national narrative that was kind of happening, or narrative kind of rant that was going on. Another thing that happened with the Chargers over the weekend, which I just thought was funny because you, like me, have been around a lot of NFL players. You can imagine this scenario in your head. So the Chargers were playing their final preseason game in Dallas, right, against the Cowboys. They got stuck in an elevator on the Friday night before the game. So 15 people, players and personnel, got stuck in, I think it was the Westin, in an elevator, including quarterback Justin Herbert. They had to crawl through a ceiling panel to escape the stuck elevator because it was in like a blind shaft. Okay, it was in a blind shaft between the 3rd and 15th floors of the Westin in downtown Dallas. A technician was unsuccessful in an attempt to get the elevator working. So the urban search and rescue team, the fire department, everybody came out and they had to like take them out one by one out of this like ceiling panel. But they were stuck in this elevator, no air conditioning for 2 hours. Okay, first of all, Braden, it's my worst nightmare. I can't imagine being stuck in an elevator for 2 hours. And especially, like, do you ever get on elevators that are super crowded?
Oh, yeah.
Like 15 people in an elevator. It's not like if it was 2 or 3, you're sort of like, okay, you can sit down and stretch your legs or whatever. 15 people, like, you are basically on top of one another. Have you ever been stuck in an elevator?
I got stuck in a elevator one time when we were practicing at TCU. We had practice in the stadium. And so it was like stadium's empty, right, for everybody but the team, and I had to go up to the top to get one of the SD cards because I wasn't filming that day. I was running cards, and in the elevator on the way down, it shut down.
But you were alone?
Yeah, it was just me, and it was one of those like maintenance one,
like a service elevator,
gigantic service elevators, and I was like, oh, here we go. But luckily, I had my radio, and I was like, I'm stuck in the elevator. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, I'm in the elevator. It's not moving. So when it's not moving, that means you're stuck. And they're like, all right, smart ass, where are you at? And I was like, all right, and that was like one of the first times I was in the stadium I was like, I think I'm on the home side, but like closer to the scoreboard. Like, you know, what elevator? I'm like, I don't know, dude. Whatever one.
Whichever one's stuck, you probably have like a board.
That's
that
right.
tells
I'm
you.
sure they can figure it out. I was like, the one you told me to take?
How long did you wait?
It wasn't very long.
Okay,
was like
and then they got it working?
It was 15 minutes.
You'd have to crawl through a shaft? Okay.
No, I just, honestly, all we needed somebody to do is just call for it, and then it came down, and then one of our other video guys was like, all right, cool, dude, let's go.
I have a friend that's been stuck quite a few times. He's gotten stuck like twice in an elevator. But so Matt in the chat, I think this is so true. Matt in the chat says, Harbaugh talked about Herbert stuck in the elevator as if he navigated an entire platoon out of a war zone. And he did. He was like, Justin Herbert was the only one that came out of the ceiling, not sweating. He's so cool under pressure. And then didn't he say that he wanted, like, he wished he was in there?
Yeah,
or
I wish I was in there.
I wish I was in there. I wish I was stuck in there with him.
What a clown, dude. That's such a clown comment, as Bryce Harper would say. It's a clown comment, bro.
Do you think that he made the elevator get stuck just for like a bonding moment?
You know what? I saw that somewhere.
I'm going
I
to
saw
teach
that.
these guys metal.
They're
going to learn how to face adversity.
I saw in the college football Reddit Twitter account. They were like, wouldn't put it past the Harbaugh to to ask for this to happen, just to do some team building.
Yeah. So
I could totally see that
trust
happening.
activities happening here.
I can imagine that being miserable. We played when you play Texas Tech. Lubbock only has one hotel that's big enough for a college football team. I forget what it's called. I'd have to look up what it's called. But it's like a 3-story hotel. And in that hotel that everybody stays at, it's got one elevator.
Oh.
And the one elevator fits about 4 video staff size people, 4 to 6 video staff size people, probably like 2 linemen. And I remember we were going up the elevator to, I think we were on the 3rd floor, and one of the video guys was like, we're going to have to get up earlier than we usually do. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, how many trips do you think this thing's going to have to take to get our offensive line from the 3rd floor down to the bottom? And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. We ended up taking the stairs in the hotel.
Yeah, you got to use the stairs in that situation.
Oh, man. But it was rough. I was like, dude, this is a place, the Lubbock, Texas.
One elevator. That's it.
Yes. Oh, here it is. Here it is. It's called the
So
MCM Elegante Hotel and Suites. Was the only hotel big
I feel like
enough.
there wasn't a lot of suites.
No, I did not. I definitely did not have one of the suites, but it was the Elegante, the MCM Elegante Hotel and Suites in Lubbock, Texas, which you can book for $100 a night right now, currently in Lubbock. If anybody wants to go to Lubbock, Texas, nobody ever wants to go to Lubbock. But yes, that is the hotel that's big enough for everybody to stay at, and that was the case. And we were like, all right. We were in the elevator kind of cramped, as you like kind of described. There's like 6 of us, and we're sitting there going like, there's like D1 football players have to make it through this.
Oh, yeah. There's big guys.
It's massive.
Big guys, massive guys. Okay, that's an interesting story. The St. Louis Cardinals, I didn't get a chance to ask Derek about this on our call, but they had to switch hotels at like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning.
Last night?
No, the night before, before their final game against the Twins. So 3, 4 a.m. local time, because there was a leak discovered at the hotel they were staying at, and the water like main pipe thing broke or some kind of leak, and they had to move hotels like 3, 4 in the morning, and yeah, that's crazy too. I mean, at that point, you're like, you might as well just go sit in the lobby and like take your stuff down, but. I don't know. These are players, and
we went up on Friday night. We played Oklahoma State my junior year. Junior year, we stayed in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Okay, nothing to stay in Stillwater. Stillwater's by itself. Another place I wouldn't recommend going. And so I drove up with the video staff was on the early crew, and we went up to Oklahoma City. And in Oklahoma City, we stayed at the Crown Plaza that Baylor was scheduled to play at the next week, or scheduled to stay at the next week, and West Virginia had just stayed there, I think, 2 weeks prior. And we get to the Crown Plaza, and we're going to check in, and the rooms aren't ready for us yet. And then we quickly realized the rooms aren't ready yet for any of our gigantic traveling party. And we're like looking around, and they're like, oh, it's going to be like, it's about like 20, 30 minutes. And we're like, okay. And then my boss calls, and he's like, oh, why don't you go guys get lunch? And he calls, he's like, yeah, it's going to be some hours. And the other team, and our team's showing up here shortly. So we got to start getting some rooms ready for the hotel, because they're not prepared. And apparently they had people quit, and they only had like 2 guys on staff for the entire Crown Plaza in Oklahoma City.
Oh my gosh.
And so like we had managers making dinner. We had managers stirring Gatorade. We were setting up the meeting rooms. We were setting up, trying to make beds. It was like a nightmare scenario for our D1 college team. And
that is not fun.
And it was such a terrible play. They didn't have any food, so then we had to double up on the per diem. The only thing in the parking lot at the Crown Plaza was a Sonic and a Hooters. And so guys are coming back with all this takeout food.
I just got the wings.
The night before the game.
Wings.
Yeah, I just went for the wings. There's a Dave & Buster's across the street. And so everybody was on their own for food. It was such a nightmare. They called Baylor, and they were like, don't stay here. And so Baylor was like, canceled, went somewhere else. And it's amazing the trips that you go on with teams and how it's never run smoothly. I mean, we talked about
glamorous as it seems.
We talked about Delaware State getting to Hawaii this weekend. It took them 4 different flights to get everybody out there after they missed the bus. It's not as much as like the pros have a glamorous like room they stay in. The travel to and from is not always as smooth as you think it is.
Yeah, it's so true. This Cardinals one, I think it was Friday or Saturday that it happened. But you know what that's like. Just like what you were talking about with the Crown Plaza. Like you got players who are trying to get ready for a game who feel like this. It's super important to them that they go out there, they do their best to get a win or whatever, and half of them just can't even get food or a room or.
Then you got fans watching the next day. Oh, it looks like they partied all last night.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they're eating buffalo wings at like 2 in the morning because food was out and they didn't have breakfast for us. So we had an hour bus. It's tough traveling. It's tough traveling on the road in college football.
Not as glamorous as it sounds, although more glamorous for the pros than it is for college football. Although these days, gosh, with NIL and everything, who knows? All right, when we come back, we're going to break down the Padres and the Cardinals. We'll give you a preview right after the break here on 97.3 The Fan. Final hour of the Annie and Elsten show as we take you through to 2 p.m. Turn the reins over to Gwen and Chris. And then Matt Scraby for the Padres pregame show. Padres baseball coming at you at 4:45 today, so an earlier game. I'm Annie Heilbrunn. Craig Elsten playing a charity golf tournament today. He'll be back tomorrow. Joined by Braden Soprenin as we've been taking you through this Monday. A good weekend for the Padres. They split 2-2 with the Mets, a 4-game series. Look, we got into the national news topics, talking a little bit about being stuck in an elevator in the last segment, which, by the way, Jay in the chat says being stuck in an elevator with other people and you have to use the bathroom. Oh, that would be the worst.
Everybody turn
really
around.
would. Yeah. Like, what do you do? Like, and you don't know exactly when you're going to get out, and you got to pee or something. Oh, God. Okay. Anyways, we missed the game. My apologies on that. We just blew right through it. I can't believe it's already 1 p.m. So we will bring the game back tomorrow. And remember, you can call in, play the game, and you will be eligible. You'll be qualified if you win for our grand prize, a 2-night stay at Resorts World Las Vegas, 2 tickets to Carrie Underwood, Reflection at Resorts World Theater. Carrie Underwood returns to Las Vegas with her critically acclaimed production, Reflection, the Las Vegas residency at Resorts World Theater. Tickets for performances from August 14th to October 26th are on sale now at AXS.com and RWLasVegas.com. So tune in tomorrow, 12:45 p.m. We will play a game, and you can call in, perhaps get yourself in the hopper to win a 2-night stay to Vegas. So as we reset a little bit of this show, I want to touch again on the weekend that was, and particularly yesterday's game for the San Diego Padres, who defeated the New York Mets 3-2. It was a heck of a game, a very quiet game to start with Jose Quintana. Jose Quintana, Braden, having their number all season long, right?
He was terrible before the game yesterday. Like, his 7 starts prior to the Padres start, he had a 6-point-something ERA. He had given up 7 earned runs to the Orioles, and I know the Orioles are really good, but still, I mean, the guy was struggling. Yeah. And then he shoved against the Padres for the second time this year.
He did it in New York, too.
He did it in New York.
I remember before that game, we were like, oh, it's Jose Quintana. Like, they'll be able to get to him. No.
2 of Quintana's 4 solid starts are against the Padres. Soft-throwing left-handers. Padres cannot hit those guys.
So he kept him quiet, 6 1/3 shutout innings. But in the 8th inning, Mason McCoy, 7-pitch walk, and then Jurickson Profar, clutch home run to tie the game. You could tell how much he was feeling that, going around the bases. He was motioning to the dugout as he does. And that would kind of set the wheels in motion of like, hey, we've done this so many times before. Time for another comeback. So what does Jackson Merrill do after oversliding on trying to steal a base in the 7th inning? He was on the bag, but then he just slid off of it, just had too much momentum going that direction.
Yeah, he definitely stole that base.
He did. He had the
was
base
there.
stolen, right. It's an important point because it just happens sometimes, right? Like your hand comes off. And he said he flushed it. He went back out to the 8th, the 8th inning in center field, but he did the math in his head. He said this after the game, did the math in my head, realized that just a few guys need to get on base and I'll have another shot. I love that. And he did. And so then he hits this bomb of a home run for the walk-off. Done it so many times this year before. Continues to make history. He is tied for the most game-tying or go-ahead home runs in a single season in MLB history. The qualifiers there are 8th inning or later, age 21 or younger. He's in the same company as Hall of Famer Frank Robinson, who had 6 in 1956. Broke a tie with Hall of Famer Mel Ott, who in 1929 had 5. That is the rarity we're looking at. Late in close situations, Merrill is batting .333 with an 1158 OPS. He is 8th in all of Major League Baseball in late and close situations. Number 1 in late and close situations, Jurickson Profar, who has a 1457 OPS. And I said earlier, for context, Juan Soto is 4th, Shohei Ohtani is 6th. The 2 of these guys, the veteran and the rookie, they have been the heartbeat of what has made this Padres season come to life. You would not be here without Jurickson Profar. You would not be here without Jackson Merrill, 2 of the most inexpensive guys on the roster, 2 guys who are sort of, let's see how Jackson Merrill does this season because, he's never played above AA. How's he going to do in a new position? What's he going to be like? Is he going to hit the rookie wall? Jurickson Profar, a guy that you're like, is even going to last the whole season. There was a lot of questioning over whether he was going to remain in that outfield spot or the Padres were going to find someone else to take his spot. Maybe he was just going to be a stand-in for the beginning months of the season. But these two guys have absolutely been electric for the San Diego Padres, right? I mean, Braden, you really wouldn't have this season, the story of this season, without them. And in fact, you talked to Jackson Merrill after the game.
I did, and here's my conversation with Jackson Merrill after yesterday's game.
Braden Sprenda here with Jackson Merrill, just a walk-off home run for the Padres. Jackson, you've had some pretty impressive home runs the last couple of weeks. How'd that one stack up? How'd that one feel?
No, that was great. Going on the road, try to get a little win at home, take some energy on the road, and we came back, fought in that one, so it was great.
How'd that feel with the front of the crowd here at Petco Park? I mean, you've had your second walk-off winner here at Petco now in terms of a home run. Energy blew off this place.
Yeah, no, the cap came off, and that's unreal. The fans here, they do it all for us. They bring the energy, especially when we're down. They bring the energy, they stay in the game, and it's awesome.
You guys have been really good at coming back this season. I know ball didn't really go your way a couple of times throughout this weekend, but how are you guys able to continue to fight back and be able to win some games when you're down early?
It's baseball. I think that's the biggest thing to understand is baseball is such an unordinary game. Anything can happen, luck can happen, skill can happen, everything can happen.
You've played in a lot of baseball games in your life, man. Have you ever had more fun playing baseball than right now?
No, great baseball game. Great baseball game today.
What do you guys got left before the road trip leading into these last couple of weeks? How important is this win against the Mets, another team you're battling for in the playoffs?
Yeah, it's crunch time, and we just wanted to fight. I don't think we wanted to let them get away with it easy. They kind of had a number during the year. They won the season series against us. We don't like that. So, just come out, play hard to the last minute we got against them.
Jackson, appreciate the time. Go enjoy the win.
Thank you.
Great stuff, Braden. And I love that last answer. They didn't want to make it easy for the Mets. The Mets, and this is what Jurickson Profar was talking about on Friday when he was like, everybody settle down. Everybody calm down. Yes, Yu Darvish and Fernando Tatis Jr. on their way back, but we got a job to do tonight. We got to get some wins against these Mets who have really had our number all season long. I mean, they got swept by the Mets in New York, split the series with them. It was really, really important that they get out of San Diego. They go to St. Louis with at least the split, and they were able to do that. I mean, this would look so much different, right, Braden, if the Mets had won 3 out of 4?
It would have looked a lot different. It would have felt a lot different, especially since the Diamondbacks won yesterday and the Dodgers won yesterday, and that would have been a really deflating weekend series against the Mets. You already lost the season series to New York Mets, but all of a sudden the Mets start creeping up a little bit, and they got the tiebreaker. That's not good news for the Padres. They really needed that win yesterday, and Jackson Merrill delivered again for the Pods.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't have that win without a pitching staff that keeps the game in check. So Perez was taken out in the 4th inning, bases loaded. He did a fine job for the Padres. He's doing what he needs to do. Only had allowed 1 run, but bases were loaded. Like Braden mentioned earlier in the show, you had Francisco Lindor back up to the plate. Potential chance to hit another grand slam, which he had done on Saturday against the Padres. So Mike Shildt goes to Brian Hoeing. He managed this game aggressively. And Mike Shildt said after the game, you can't do that every time. You can't, what they call chase the win, right? They were down 1-0 and then 2-0, and they chased that win, feeling like they could come back. They can't do it every time, but they did it yesterday, and it worked. Goes to Hoeing, who has been tremendous for this Padres team. He's able to get Lindor, I think it was a strikeout, right, for Lindor in that one. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was.
In the second situation of Francisco Lindor in the 4th inning with the bases loaded and 2 outs and a one run lead for the Mets.
Right, and that, I mean, he hits there. He even gets a hit and brings in 2. You're looking at a much different ball game, but Hoeing retires him, has only allowed 1 guy to score after 14 inherited runners this year. He's been tremendous for the Padres, a big pickup. So Hoeing, Estrada, Adams, Scott, and Suarez, bullpen just keeps them in reach. I think it was Adam who let up the other home run, but again, you're going to let up home runs. And if you're going to let up home runs, solo shots are the kind that you want to let up. I mean, Joe Musgrove says it all the time. You will live with a solo home run, especially if you're getting a quality start or a scoreless outing or, something that's keeping the offense with the ability to come back. It's just not as bad as it seems, right? So 33rd comeback of the season for the Padres, and they just keep it rolling.
Doing a great job, obviously, and playing some good baseball, and they're doing it from every part of the order. I mean, unsung hero yesterday, Mason McCoy, working a walk.
Yes.
Right? I mean, getting himself on base. I mean, that's probably one of the unsung heroes of yesterday's game. We talked about Jake Cronenworth's at bat, seeing a lot of pitches before and ended up striking out, but Jackson Merrill being able to see those pitches on deck against a pitcher that he has never seen in Major League Baseball, hasn't had an at bat against. That's another one of those unsung heroes.
Yep.
The bullpen doing a phenomenal job of keeping the deficit the same. Jason Adam gave it the solo shot, and as you mentioned before, solo home runs don't hurt you. And the Padres proved that yesterday, but it was great to see the bullpen hang on to a deficit too, because you always talk about the bullpen and hanging on to leads, but you need your bullpen to hang on to a 1-run, 2-run deficit just as much as a 1 or 2-run lead to give your offense an opportunity. And even 2 days ago, the bottom half of the order, as I mentioned before, they got a couple rallies started to flip it to the top. Unfortunately, the top of the order wasn't unable to make the plays that they needed to make to help it out, but you're getting contributions from everyone on the team right now.
Absolutely. And you've got two guys, like you said, you've got Bryce Johnson in there. You've got Mason. Is it Mason McCoy? I want to say Mason Wynn right now. It's Mason McCoy, right?
Mason McCoy.
And he's been doing a good job. I mean, coming into this team and doing a good job at defense. But they're still waiting on Ha-Seong Kim to come back. On Fernando Tatis Jr. We'll probably get some more of an update on Kim, at least I would imagine, either today or tomorrow when the beat writers who are in St. Louis talk to Mike Schilt. But you look at these Cardinals now, the Padres in St. Louis for a 4-game set, another 4-game set, right? These can kind of wear you down a little bit. It's going to be hot there. They're just going to have to, kind of get through that. And so far from these Padres, at least in the second half, they haven't really cared where they are, what conditions they're playing in. And you hear Mike Schultz say that all the time. Regardless of circumstance, our team competes, right? So they're not going to spend too much time on that heat. But they are going in there, and they're facing a Cardinals team. If you didn't hear the interview with Derek Gould of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, we did it at 10:35 this morning. He was really good about what the Cardinals' struggles have been this year. Some insight from Mike Schilt. He covered him during his tenure when he managed the Cardinals in St. Louis. So he had a lot of stuff to say, a lot of good stuff to say, but he mentioned this offense for the Cardinals, really not good, been really inconsistent for them. They are hitting as a team 239 with a 311 on base percentage. Mason Wynn, their shortstop, I think kind of being their best, maybe their most confident hitter. Nolan Arenado had more of a resurgent month in August. He's done better, but he hasn't had the season that he's used to. Paul Goldschmidt, not at all having the season that he's used to. A 631 OPS for Paul Goldschmidt. You rarely see that from him, right? And then Tommy Pham hit the ground running hot when he was traded to the Cardinals, but then he's since cooled off. But gosh, Braden, you got to imagine Mike Schilt is he's gonna want to win these games.
Oh yeah,
he's gonna want to win the series.
It's definitely circled on his calendar to go to St. Louis and do some damage against the Cardinals. I think Derek Gould put it really well in the interview that we had at the 10:35 mark this morning. But the Padres, managed by Mike Schilt, who is in contention for National League Manager of the Year. Yeah. Can go to St. Louis and really put the final nail in the coffin of the St. Louis Cardinals by taking 3 out of 4. I mean, St. Louis is already 5 games out of a wild card spot. They have the 4th worst run differential in the National League. The worst is the Rockies, minus 208. Then it's the Marlins at minus 184. The Nationals at minus 61. The Cardinals at minus 56. They've been outscored by 56 runs this season throughout the year. And it's not who you play, it's when you play them. The Padres played them early when the Cardinals were off to a better start. They're playing them late now when they've been struggling, 5-5 in their last 10. They did win yesterday, but they have not been that great of a baseball team, and a team that's got a lot of ailing veterans on it that traded away some of their younger players during the trade deadline.
It's such a good point. And let me touch on the veterans in a second, but just to follow up on what you just said, yes, the minus 56 run differential. They rank 13th in batting average, 22nd in slugging, 18th in ERA, and 9th in bullpen ERA. They have gone 15-19 since the All-Star break. Like Braden said, they did a good job when they faced the Padres early. They took 2 of 3 from the Padres. But this is a different Padres team, and this is a Cardinals team that's just been inconsistent. And when you look at those aging veterans, like they have a pitching staff, and they got Fetty at the deadline, which was good for them. But they have a pitching staff of like 30-year-old guys, 30-plus-year-old guys, minus one. They're going to face this guy. What's his name? Palante. Palante, I think, is having
He's the Irvine product.
Is he? Okay.
Yes, my buddy pitched with him at Irvine.
Andre Palante.
Palante.
He's been pretty good for the Cardinals, but he's like their young guy. But the older guys have just been not that great, just kind of inconsistent. Some good starts, some bad starts. They're facing Kyle Gibson today. He's a 12-year veteran, 5.48 ERA over his last 4 starts. He's been better on the road than at home. But he did beat the Padres with 7 innings of 2-run ball at Petco Park in April. So, you get out there, you try to get off to a good start, but 4 games. What do you think, Braden? Splitting this one again is kind of worst case scenario, or you hope that they can take the series or take 3 out of 4. But if they split, it's not the end of the world.
You hope they can split, is what I think you're hoping for. Worst case scenario would be going 1-3, and I think best case scenario is going 3-1.
Yeah.
I think you got to keep playing the tread water right now on this stretch with no days off. If they can go in there and take 3 out of 4, that'd be great, because then they'd win the season series over St. Louis after losing 2 out of 3 here. Plus, it would put you in a really good spot knowing that the Dodgers have tough games against Baltimore and Arizona, and the Diamondbacks have games against the Mets and then the Dodgers. This is a big week for the Padres where they can make up some of the ground that they lost last week by doing really well in St. Louis during 4 games and then going down to the Trop.
Yeah, I agree. And Jeff Sanders in the UT had a nice note. I talked about this earlier this year that David Peralta also started his career off with the Cardinals, and he was a pitcher. And it was Mike Schilt who let him go and said it was extended spring training or rehab spring training or whatever that's called. And he said Mike Schilt was very businesslike at the time, and Peralta didn't speak a lot of English, but it was essentially like, we're not keeping you. You got to go. And so then Peralta went and recreated himself, completely transformed himself into the hitter and outfielder that you see now, and has gone on to a great career. But some interesting ties. I think always a reunion with Tommy Pham too. I think Tommy always has a chip on his shoulder, although he hasn't been that productive for the Cardinals lately, but always has a chip on his shoulder to want to kind of show what he's got. So this is one that, again, you take seriously and you just try to make sure that you're playing your best brand of baseball.
Should be a fun series. Looking forward to it.
So, Braden, when we come back, shall we take a look at college football?
It started.
Oh, okay.
We had 4 games this weekend. There's a lot that I think we need to get in before we start talking about the games coming up this week itself. We got a lot of football games that are going to start coming up on Thursday in the college football realm, and I'll get into more of this later. 21 games on Thursday, 6 games on Friday, over 60 games on Saturday, a lone game on Sunday, and a lone game on Monday this week in college football. They get the first bit at the stage before the NFL starts the following weekend. There's a lot of stuff that happened during the offseason that you forget about that we should probably refresh everybody on before the 2024 college football season kicks off.
We'll have a refresher as we work our way to Ask Us Anything. And today for Ask Us Anything too, if you want to call in with a quick comment, as long as it's a comment about the team or something nice, don't be mean. You can comment. I'm not going to you don't have to ask a question, okay? But we'll speed through those at the end. First, let's get to some college football. Keep it right here. Annie and Elsten, right after the break, 97.3 The Fan. Hey, wait. It's not over yet. It's not over yet. We still have one more segment before the break, before we get to Ask Us Anything and close out the show. Welcome back to Annie and Elsten. Annie Heilbron here. Craig Elsten out at a charity golf tournament. He'll be back tomorrow, joined by Braden Soprano. Want to thank everyone who has stuck with us today as we've covered quite a bit here on this show, talking about everything Padres, everything that happened over the weekend, as well as a lot of good stories going around in sports that also happened over the weekend. But Braden, college football is back. It is going. It is humming along, and it's a mess. And who better to get us through that mess and wade us through those murky waters than yourself?
That's right.
What is the refresher that we need here with college football?
Well, let's play some music.
Okay.
Let's get everybody dialed in. College football.
Let's get him excited.
Yes.
Okay.
College football is back. And
do you get more excited for college football being back or the NFL being back?
Well, the Chargers are here as the NFL,
Right,
but now
yeah.
after
College
so many
football.
years, it's definitely college
Okay,
football.
good answer.
TCU has now replaced the Chargers for my football team, religious watching of freaking out and all sorts of fun stuff. Let's talk about college football. It has started, and it will continue this week. College football's week 0 was over the weekend at 4 FBS games, if you will. Georgia Tech, Yellow Jackets beat Florida State 24-21 in Ireland over the weekend. Big upset as the number 10 Florida State Seminoles go down 24-21. Montana State Bobcats were down 17 points in the fourth quarter. They came back to beat New Mexico 35-31. Tough loss for the Mountain West Lobos. SMU comes back against Nevada, who was picked to finish last in the Mountain West Conference. The Ponies beat the Wolfpack 29-24. That was one that got roughed out there at the end. Hawaii defeats Delaware State 35-14. So Delaware State made it to Hawaii. Didn't help them out that they had to take 4 planes to do so. But that was the first weekend of college football. Week 1 will start this week, but we need to know who's in what conference. Where's everybody at? I mean, it seems like we got new friends. We got old friends in new conferences. We got new friends in new conferences.
We got conferences that are barely hanging on.
Former foes, before. Former rivals in conferences from years past, now renewed. So much to break down. Here's a quick recap for you.
Okay.
In the ACC, Cal, Stanford, and SMU are the new representations of the Atlantic Coast Conference, because nothing tells me more about the Atlantic Coast like Dallas, Texas, Palo Alto, California, and Berkeley, California. But those 3 schools are now in the ACC. In the Big Ten, they have added 4 schools from the West Coast: USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. They're now in the Big Ten Conference. In the Big 12, it's Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah. And in the SEC, 2 prestigious programs in name. The Oklahoma Sooners and the Texas Longhorns now join the Southeastern Conference. That's from a power conference perspective. Well, you're thinking, it used to be called the Power 5. Well, now it's called the Power 4 because most of the teams have left the Pac-12, which is now the Pac-2. They still call themselves the Pac-12, but that would be Washington State and Oregon State. We'll start with them. Since they are a 2-man conference, it's funny. My mom adds
2 teams in this conference.
That is correct. Oregon State and Washington State are
Why
buddies.
even have that conference? Why not put them into other places?
They have nobody wanted them first, and then number 2, they do have an infrastructure of the Pac-12 network. They got to keep all of that, so that's a major resource to have for negotiations in the future.
So maybe they're going to add teams into it,
or maybe another conference will take them and their
They'll
fun little
swallow them?
TV deal.
Okay.
Our TV
make a lot of money off of
infrastructure.
that. Okay.
And turn it into the Big 12 network or something. But anyway, if there's only 2 teams in the conference, what are they going to do? Play each other
Just play
10
each other.
times?
Yes, exactly.
No, they're going to play each other once.
Okay.
They're going to play their usual non-conference games, and then they're going to play a Mountain West schedule. So San Diego State is going to play both Washington State and Oregon State this year as part of a negotiated contract between those 2 schools and the Mountain West Conference. And the Mountain West will fill out their schedule, and that will be that. So are they in the Mountain West? No, but they will play the Mountain West schools. Do they count in the Mountain West standings? Also no. So if Washington State beats San Diego State, It doesn't count in the standings.
This is weird.
It is weird, but it gets weirder. So that's that, and that's the Mountain West. Mountain
College
West did
football,
not add.
let's get weird.
That's right. Mountain West did not add any teams.
Okay.
The American Athletic Conference added Army. So Army is no longer independent. They're joining the American. They're joining their longtime rival in Navy, who had already been in the conference for some time. That gets weird, too, if those two teams make it to the ACC Conference Championship game, by the way. Because if they play in the Conference Championship game, they could play in the Army-Navy game and then play the next week in the Conference Championship game or vice versa, which is fun. And that game does not count in the standings when they play each other because it's an additional game. So, again, getting weird, but I think I'm going to bore people on that. But Army is now in a conference. Conference USA added Kennesaw State. The MAC stay in OG. They didn't make any changes, and neither did the Fun Belt. Annie, the Sun Belt did not make any change.
Fun Belt?
Yes, the Fun Belts. Conference USA and the MAC will be playing midweek games, which is fun. MACtion on Wednesdays will still continue, and now Conference USA will play on Tuesdays and Wednesdays as well. So that's fun later on in the season. There is now a 12-team playoff, Annie. What do you know about the 12-team playoff?
Braden, not much.
Not much.
Not much. There's going to be 12 teams in the playoff.
There's 12 teams in the playoff at the end of the season. So no more 4-team playoff. It's now a 12-team playoff.
Wow, they tripled that?
Yes, they were going to go to 8, and they were like, screw it, let's go to 12. They thought about 16. The division below, the FCS, they have 24 teams make their playoff.
Wow. Well, this is really just to kind of this is kind of like expanding the wild card, right? Like everybody gets a little bit of the action.
Yes.
Okay.
To an extent. But also at the same time, they needed to do this for years because they've had 120 teams in college football, and only 4 made the playoff.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah,
so they're going with 12 teams. 5 highest-ranked conference champions will automatically qualify, and then they will pick 7 at-large bids. The top 4 teams will be conference champions. So out of the 5 conference champions that make it, the top 4 will get a first-round bye and get the top 4 seeds. And then seeds 5 through 12 will play each other in the first round at the better seed host site. So 5, the 5th best team will play the 12th best team, and that will be hosted by the 5th place team. And then 6 will play 11, 7 will play 10, and 8 will play 9. And they'll be playing at schools, which is kind of fun. Dates for that. First round at home sites, December 20th and 21st. Quarterfinals will be at bowl game locations. The Fiesta Bowl quarterfinal will be on December 31st on New Year's Eve. The Peach, Rose, and Sugar Bowl quarterfinals will be on New Year's Day. Semifinal games will be on January 9th and 10th, and the Orange Bowl and the Cotton Bowl. The national championship this year is in Atlanta, Georgia. That will be on January 20th.
Does the bowl game structure stay the same?
Everything else is the same.
Okay.
They're actually not really impacted by it too much, just because most of those games were already in bowl games anyway, and ones that like don't apply to like the Holiday Bowl, so they're not really affected by that. There's different things for that we could talk about on a different day. Week 1 starts this week. I mentioned before, 21 games on Thursday, 6 games on Friday, over 65 games on Saturday, and we are officially underway for the college football season. Should be a fun one. San Diego State will open up on Saturday at 5 o'clock against Texas A&M Commerce. So it'll be your first time to be
at Snapdragon?
At Snapdragon State.
Love it. That'll be exciting.
You'll be able to see Sean Lewis and Aztec Fast.
Yes.
Coming up on Saturday.
The much anticipated.
That's right. I think the game's at 5.
Let me see.
If I'm not mistaken.
Football.
Game is at 5 on True TV.
5 p.m. Yep, Saturday, August 31st.
On True TV.
Okay, cool.
Is where you can watch the Aztecs.
That's going to be fun to watch them again and kind of get the talk around the season going and how's the Aztecs doing.
That's right. For everybody that wants to know, the Frogs play on Friday at Stanford. Frogs 9.5-point favorites. 7:30 kick. I'll be coaching against Chaminade, so nobody text me any spoilers or tweet at me. You'll be blocked.
USD starts too, right?
Correct.
Cal
USD
Poly?
plays Cal Poly on Saturday at 1 o'clock. I'll have the call on radio stream.
Oh,
USDTorontos.com.
Busy guy there. Okay.
Yes, very busy. So I will have the Cal Poly USD game on Saturday.
Are we missing any? No,
UCSD does not have
doesn't
football.
play, right?
No. And
Football, not football.
They don't play football.
All right. Okay, this is exciting. I think people should go out and support if they can and go check out some games.
Saturday's got some great college football. This is the perfect couch watching day from start to finish. The last game of the night will be Weber State at Washington, which is a Big Ten game now with Washington. 8 o'clock p.m. Pacific time start on that one. That is the final game on Saturday. First game on Saturday in the 9 o'clock hour. You got a handful, but it'll start with Clemson and Georgia in Atlanta. Will be at 9 a.m.
The thing about everything you're talking about is like don't get too used to it because then they'll change everything in like months.
Correct.
It's all gonna get messier.
Sunday, it will be the 23rd ranked USC Trojans versus the 13th ranked LSU Tigers in Vegas. That will be Sunday at 4:30 because we don't have the NFL. And then on Monday, which is Labor Day, and no Monday Night Football, we have Monday Night College Football. Boston College at Florida State. Florida State already 0-1 in the season. Not trying to be 0-2 in conference play if they lose to Boston College, 4:30 on ESPN on Monday. But you have games starting Thursday all the way through Monday for college football. Mixing some high school stuff. Football's back.
Will you is there like a red zone for college football? Will you get multiple screens going? Does that exist or?
I will do multiple screens.
Okay.
My buddies usually do that. I will flip myself.
You can't. It doesn't do it for you. You have to flip yourself.
Yeah, and I think I do it better than what they do anyway.
How do you change the channel when it's like all on apps and stuff? Like it's not like it's easy to find most of these games.
Most of the college games are still on.
Are they on regular TV?
Networks and stuff.
The
ESPN Plus games,
I don't have all those cable things, right?
Yeah, I won't be flipping back and forth on the ESPN Plus games. So if you're on ESPN Plus and it's not the Frogs, I don't care.
How are the Frogs looking?
Should be better.
Okay.
Should be better than last year. 9.5-point favorites at Stanford. Should be able to go up to the farm and kick some ass, but we'll see. I will tell you after their first game.
Okay.
Because I need to watch them play before I can give you an evaluation. 24/7 Sports did rank all the rosters. They do like recruiting. They ranked everybody's current roster if it was a recruiting class, and TCU got the 28th best roster in the country. We'll take it.
I would say Matt Carpenter would be there to ring in the first game of the season, but he'll be playing with the Cardinals.
He'll be locked in though. Him and Luke and Baker. And Luke and Baker will be locked in. 100%.
And now will LaDainian Tomlinson make an appearance at some point?
He actually has been doing a lot with the team recently, which is cool. I remember going out there when I was working for the team. LT would show up in camp a handful of times and talk to the guys. He'd bring his kids and stuff. And he lives in Fort Worth still, so he's always there. I'm sure Matt Carpenter, once the season is over, will go to a game. So more incentive for the Padres to end the Cardinals' dreams. Let Matt Carpenter get to some home football games this year.
He would have it on in the clubhouse for sure when they were playing. But yeah, it will be. Hey, Matt Carpenter, they're doing you a favor. You can go watch those Frogs.
Yeah, he lives in Fort Worth. He doesn't live too far. I'm sure he goes to the tailgates. I'm sure he goes to all the games. I'm sure he has season tickets.
Will you go back and watch a game in person this season?
Yes, I do. Okay. I have season tickets to the Frogs. I pay for them every year. I'll go to at least one game. Who
uses them when you're not there?
I'll sell some. Okay. I'll give them to friends. Face value. I know enough people that usually need tickets. So
look at you.
Yeah, I got to support the program.
Those side hustles there. Yeah,
got to support the program. I mean, it's they're more affordable than my dad's Aztec tickets, which is great.
I can imagine.
But yeah, I'll go out to one game. Usually coincides with a Cathedral Catholic bye week. This year I'm eyeing the Oklahoma State game potentially, but my mom went to Arizona, and Arizona now in the Big 12 is going to be playing at TCU, so we were thinking about doing that one. Potentially. I will go to one game. It's very hard with the schedule that I have, but I try to go to one game a year as much as I can.
I thought that the Aztecs lowered their ticket prices, so I want to give them some fairness there. Yeah, they did lower their ticket prices by 20% for the 2024 season, so hopefully some people that maybe had hesitated on going out there will go out there and check out a game. Snapdragon's cool. It's a cool place to watch a game.
It's a great place to watch a game. Yeah. I don't want to hear anybody complain about how hot it is. Because there's not a single college football stadium that has shade. Not a single one.
And a lot of these same people will sit out for Padres games. So in the heat.
Not a single one.
No one has shade? None of
When's the last time you went to the LA Coliseum? They don't have shade. The Rose Bowl doesn't have shade. Bryant-Denny Stadium in Alabama doesn't have shade. I know Georgia doesn't have shade. I went to Neyland Stadium in Tennessee. They don't have shade.
I mean, we're spoiled in Southern California.
Yes.
Now, do you think that it's because some of those are so old that they just didn't build them? Should they have? I don't know.
There's no shade.
There's just no shade, right? Yeah.
I remember going to
you'd have
TCU
to
games.
build like some kind of amazing canopy.
It'd be over 100 degrees and humid for an 11 a.m. kick, and everybody goes, and nobody complains that there's no shade. There's no shade at any stadium. Find me a stadium with shade. In college football, there isn't any. Why? Because a lot of the games are played at night.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And it's a fall sport. There's only like 1 month you got to get to the heat.
Yeah,
and after that, it's over.
and even those games, like you only have a few, right, that are day games, really, right? Like it's mostly they're mostly
Well,
at
there's
night.
a lot of day
well,
games
I mean, I guess the
college
5
football,
o'clock
but-
games too. It's still kind of hot,
But it's
anyways,
all tiered based on the time zone.
Hydrate, everyone, hydrate, and you will be fine.
I don't think the Aztecs play any like scorching hot games this year anyway.
I don't think so either.
Because they control, I think, most of their schedule. They play at 5 o'clock. That's gonna be great. It's a great kickoff time.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful, and like you said, fun to go out there and see Sean Lewis. Fun to go out there and see the Aztec fast offense and everything that they've been kind of building over this last year, and when they hired him over the offseason.
We have all the times, and I know Harold will get through. 5 o'clock for Texas A&M, Commerce. Texas A&M, Commerce. Oregon State at home on September 7th, 7:30 kick. Don't have to worry about the hot sun there. Hawaii, October 5th, which it's cooler, starting to get cooler in October. 5 o'clock start. Home against Washington State, October 26th, 7:30 start. New Mexico, November 8th, 7:30 start. Air Force still to be determined, but that's on November 30th.
Yeah, we'll worry about that when that comes. November 30th,
If
it's already...
November 30th,
Right,
it's over
it's cool
100
enough,
degrees,
okay?
we have other problems.
Yeah, we do have other problems.
We have
with
other
the-
problems.
with the climate. Okay, Braden, great job, great refresher as college football starts. It's going, it's happening this week. So people set your DVRs, set your programming notes,
I'll be recording that first game.
so you can watch everything and check out the Aztecs too. True TV, you said. We'll talk about it more this week, but True TV on Saturday, so that'll be fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right, when we come back, final segment of the show as we take you to 2 o'clock before Gwen and Chris take the mics. Ask us anything. Give us a call. What is the number, Braden?
833-288-0973.
833-298-0973.
No. 833
833
288
288
0973.
0973.
There you go.
Ask us anything you can ask Braden or myself, any question you like. It can be about sports, it can be about life, it can be about anything. Or if you'd like to make a comment, go ahead. Go ahead. Just make a comment. Just don't be mean. All right. And that's the only rule that I'm really going to have. Love it. Let's catch you after the break. Final segment of Annie and Elsten. Keep it right here. 97.3 The Fan. Final segment of the Annie and Elsten Show. I'm Annie Heilbrin, joined by Braden Soprennant. Craig is out in a charity golf tournament today, but he will be back tomorrow. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Braden and I had a fun time. Really appreciate you guys listening and being part of the show. And I think we have a few people on the line, so let's get to it. Ask us anything. Okay. Braden can see the board. I can't. So,
All right,
take it
let's
away,
go
Braden.
to Cody and Alpine. Cody, what's going on?
Cody.
Hey, guys. I know we're a little biased because of who we root for and where we live, but who's your rookie of the year, and explain why?
Okay.
We
Well,
basically had this conversation off the air.
we did have this conversation off the air, and this deserves its own segment, Cody. Great question. We'll get to it, I'm sure, this week. To me, you have all eyes are on Jackson Merrill. Yes, Paul Skeens, you did a good job. You had the voting early on in the season. Jackson Merrill, it's not just, I don't even feel like we're biased, Braden. Jackson Merrill just has had a season for the ages. He's got more game-winning hits, game-tying, and go-ahead RBIs than as many times as Skeens has even taken the mound this season. Like, he's just done way, way, way more than Paul Skeens has done this season for the Pirates.
I agree. That's 100%. You know what my opinion is on that. What he's made more of an impact on a playoff team than Paul Skeens has, and
Yeah.
he plays every day too. On top of that, which is even more impactful. I think if
Yes.
Paul Skeens was dominating for the Pirates and they were in first place or
And
something
they were
like
in
that,
contention, maybe.
I think it's different. But I agree, and I might be biased on this, but it's all right.
He's got a 3.7 WAR. I know we don't, WAR isn't the end all be all, but it's a half point higher than any other NL rookie and 0.8 higher than Skeens. He's still got a month left to play, but if Jackson Merrill is not in the conversation and high on the list for you, you're not watching baseball right now. Like you're just looking at Livy Dunn and Paul Skeens, and just,
100%.
that's it. Like, so you got to turn your eyes to that. Great question, Cody, and it deserves more talk. I'm sure we'll do it later this week.
Let's go to Jimmy and PB.
Hey, guys. How are you today?
Hey, Jimmy.
Hey, if say you guys are going to a ball game as regular Joes, where are you sitting, what you eating, and what you drinking? And don't give me box seats or anything like that.
I
So
was gonna say,
what
Lexus?
section you sitting in, and what are you eating?
Braden, you want to start?
I like the club level the most, like the 200s. I like
That's
that for a
nice.
lot of different sporting events. I like being up a little bit to be able to see everything play out. I usually go with a light beer at sporting events so I can have a couple more of them than usual, and then depending on what my mood is for food, I like to try the local cuisine when I'm at different ballparks. So I try to mix it up. At Petco Park, it's always great to get the Gaglione Brother cheesesteak fries. It's a
Yeah,
good
those
time.
are good. Jimmy, great question. I like sitting in different places around Petco Park. I really liked, I did a story on Tatis last year in right field, and that was the first time I'd ever spent some time out in right field, and I really liked it out there. It was like a party. I know it's obviously not the clear place that I get in the press box of behind home plate, but it was fun. It was fun to interact with Fernando Tatis Jr. I got to see the game in a different way. So I'll throw it over to some outfield, maybe move over to the beach section or something and get to see Jackson Merrill doing his thing. Any of those outfield I think would be fun. Jerks and Profile, I know, messes with the fans at times. And I would be having a margarita. And we'll go with some. I think they have Puesto tacos there this year, don't they? They have. Didn't
Puesto's there.
Start. Okay, I'll go with some Puesto or some Seaside Market. Great question.
Here's John in Bankers Hill. John, what's going on?
Did John?
Let's
leave?
try that again. John in Bankers Hill.
Hey, John, are you there?
And his phone keeps cutting out. All right, let's try Jason in San Diego. Jason, what's going on?
Doing?
Uh-oh.
I got him. I can hear him in the background
Okay, here we
faintly.
go.
Jason.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. What's your question?
All right. Yeah, so my question is, during the All-Star break, Craig was on the round table, and they asked him if the Padres were going to make it to the playoffs, and he adamantly said no, that they wouldn't make it to the playoffs. If the Padres make it to the playoffs, do you think he will apologize to the Padres and the fans of San Diego?
I don't really remember him doing that.
I don't remember him doing that.
I mean, what round table are we talking about here, right?
Maybe he was saying, like, if they don't do X, Y, Z, they
Yes,
won't make
what's
it to the
context?
playoffs. I'm not sure the context.
I'm pretty sure the context is like the way they were playing early in the season. They're not going to make the playoffs and continue to play like this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to throw him under the bus on that one.
Same here. Call back and you can ask Craig. Call back and ask Craig because maybe you got to bring like the context in the conversation because I don't remember him saying that like outright.
I said right at the trade deadline?
Oh, at the trade deadline? Maybe like if they didn't play well. Like, I don't know.
I mean, there's been some times it's like maybe they don't, they haven't played well enough to buy at the deadline. I know that was a topic for a lot of people.
That was a topic, yeah.
But no, I'm not going to say that.
Okay. Well, yeah. We don't, I don't remember that, but I'm sure Craig will take your call and maybe understand a little bit more. Yeah, but.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Roundtable and to 97.3 The Fan. And hopefully Craig had a great day of golf. I'm sure he will tell us about it tomorrow. Keep us all up to date. Braden and I, this was fun. It was fun to
good time.
We had some good Padres baseball to break down as well.
Yes, of course.
Some good. Thank you everyone for calling in, for listening, for being part of the show. Appreciate you all. Grateful for you all. We will see you again tomorrow, same time, same place. Keep it right here, 97.3 The Fan. Gwynn and Chris up next. Have a great day, everyone.